Bear Independent Podcast 004. I'm here with my friend and brother, Ed Hubbell of the Iridium Group. Thank you for joining me. We're just going to have a conversation, and wherever it goes for however long it goes, so be it. Who are you?
Oh, I want to be so humble and say I'm nobody. I'm someone who is, God, I don't even know how to say this. So I like to help people. I like to find other people who do the same thing, and this has been a very fortunate collusion of similar temperaments between you and I.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a thing going on down here that mirrors a lot of what I do up in Canada. I joke and I say I am the Canadian contingent, or the token Canadian. Although this weekend we had a couple other Canadians in class, returning students of yours. It's cool to see you've got international effect now. I'm here largely because you guys are here. The truth is the trauma medicine training stuff, the tactical training stuff, that can be done anywhere. In almost every case, it's about the people.
Mm-hmm.
And the people are the most important thing. And at different stages, different spectrums. So I've come from a rather interesting life. And, in my early 40s, found that doing it all alone wasn't sufficient.
Yep.
And so here we are. And this we were set up to be together for however long that, it is willed to be so. And so far it's going very well.
Amen. I met you at Self-Reliance Festival with John and Amanda Willis.
First time in the flesh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Self-Reliance Festival, and we'll come around to John and Amanda in a minute. And Nicole Sauce, living free, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. She does a lot of work to make sure all that stuff happens. But I hear constantly from people, like, you don't understand, Bear. I just can't find people. It's so hard to find good people. And it's like, I don't know what a ticket to Self-Reliance Festival costs. I think they're under $100. Go. Just go. Get outside of your comfort zone a little bit, because you know that there's going to be like-minded people there. That they're going to have butchering classes and stop the bleed classes and chainsaw classes and canning classes and speakers and presenters from Jack Spirko to Joel Salatin and everybody else in between. And Billy from Permapasture, and hell, I've spoken there, and I'll be speaking there again in the fall. And so, like, there will be like-minded people there. And so, if, like, you want to go bass fishing and you go motoring out into the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, low probability you're going to catch bass. You know what I mean? And so, like, a little bit of pre-operational intelligence. Mm-hmm. Where do I find other people like me? Mm-hmm. And Self-Reliance Festival is one of those places. And there are others. There's, I don't know, Mountain Readiness and, Kentucky Sustainable Living.
Yeah, KSL, for sure.
Puts on events, and Refuge Ruckus, and just go. Get out of, even if you're an introvert, get out of your comfort zone a little bit. Go and talk to people. And if you're super introverted, go talk to one person. If you can find one person over the course of a weekend to go talk to. And the reason I bring that up is you brought up people are the most important thing, right? And I like to say people are the best thing and the worst thing in life. The right people are the best thing, and the wrong people are the worst thing in life. And it just mushrooms out from there. But I wouldn't have any of the awesome people in my life, up to and including my wife, if I didn't go to where the good people were. Mm-hmm. And we were in Camden, Tennessee at SOE, and John and Amanda, John had been following my content for a while, and he said, hey, you should come out here, hang out, talk. Okay, cool, sounds good. And you happened to be there. And John, you were saying earlier off camera, like, John puts people together. That's one of his giftings.
Very much so.
Yeah. And he was like, you guys should talk. And then we did. And then we talked some more. And then you hollered at me and was like, hey, how do we get refuge kits into Canada? And I was like, that's a great question. Let's figure that one out.
Yep.
And then we did. And then, you came down for this training that we just did with Refuge, which I thought went really, really well for the inaugural class of this type of training. And even that, what people miss is like, we had a great time. Everybody had a great time. The students learned, the cadre learned, the Op4 learned, everybody learned. And when you get a critical mass of people together and get them all pointed in the right direction and properly motivated, amazing things happen. But it takes the people first. Mm-hmm. Like, I got to have a group of people to work with. Even if we were just talking, there was, arguably some students that shouldn't have been in the class. But when the balloon goes up, when the world ends, it's like you think you're going to have people that maybe we have disagreeable attitudes, or maybe they don't have the capability or the training or the physicality. Yeah, 100%. And so even that becomes a teaching point of like, this is normal. Expect this.
This sucks. Good.
Yeah.
And it's kind of magical for it to not be set up so that it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get people with dissenting opinions and who don't just like look at the chain of command and rank structure that has been established, for the purposes of the scenario and go, oh, you're in charge. I'm going to do whatever you want. In the civilian world, that's not how this works. In the military world, that's, it's questionable whether it's how it works all the time anyways. But like for regular everyday people who you're going to get to, scenario with in this scenario,
yep,
that's not how that works.
Yeah.
And you don't get to dictate what your scenario is going to look like.
Yep.
That's an imaginary fallacy that people, who are like, I'm going to prepare. You're going to prepare for what? The end of the world. What's that going to look like? Well, it's going to be this and this, and then this is going to be like, the grid's going to be down. How do you know?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the end of the world, electricity still works. Maybe these still work, but It's legitimately the end of the world. Maybe we're out of water. Maybe wildfires scorch everything. Maybe there's, the earth rips open and there's earthquakes.
Yep.
Maybe great floods come again. Right? Although there's lots of rainbows all everywhere now.
Yeah.
Right? Even the people putting up the rainbow flags. I'm like, oh, all you're telling me is there's no floods coming. So really for that. But we don't know. We never will know for sure. And so there's no sense in role playing to the exact degree, how it's going to work. And it's the same thing with like going to SRF to meet people. You will meet people, if you put the intentionality in. But if you just go there to like find your favorite internet celebrity.
Right. Sorry.
And be like, hey man, I really love what you do. That's great, but that's not a conversation that opens to like more conversations.
Right.
I know lots of people do that, and that's totally fine. A suggestion is to go there and be interested in something. Find something you're interested in and do that, because 93% of communication is body language.
Yep.
It's how you're doing it. It's, am I interested in being here? And if you go to these events and engage in the activities and do them and learn, people will be attracted to that.
Yeah. Did the event suck or did you suck?
Did the event suck or did you suck?
Yep.
Yeah. It's rarely both.
Yeah. True. And I mean, sunk costs. Maybe the event does suck. And it's rare for me that the event has sucked,
Okay.
But maybe the event did suck. Well, I'm here. What do I need to do? How can I extract some value out of this? And I think that's something a lot of people miss as well. Like, there's an opportunity cost to things. And so I'm already here. I've already invested time and money to get to here. Well, what can I extract out of this that will actually be a benefit to me? And like, we went to Mountain Readiness last fall. Was it last fall, Dud? We go out to Mountain Readiness out there, and great event. But it's in North Carolina. I live in Oklahoma. And it's like, well, if we're going to hop in the Ninja Turtles van and drive halfway across the country, we should probably do some stuff while we're going, right? And so we were driving out there. I think we stopped in Camden, Tennessee, because we were driving along I-40, and the Spirit was like, go see John. I'm like, okay. And so we rolled in, I think we ended up podcasting or something, And then he's like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, it was the last day of SRF. That's what it was. And so I was like, I'm just going to drop in and say what's up. That was awesome. We hop back in the van. We drive out there. Long and short, man, we went to, I'm already traveling to North Carolina. So we popped in at Self-Reliance Festival because I'm already on the road, right? Opportunity cost. Now, if I have an opportunity cost, how many opportunities can I stack inside of this cost, right?
Sure.
Because I'm already traveling. So we go to SRF, we go to Mountain Readiness. Robert T. Toombs, what's up, T? We get out there. We had some time to kill, so we ended up driving up to Polyface up in Virginia. So we run into, and that was totally the hand of the Father. We run into Daniel Salatin, filmed a bunch of Patreon content there, filmed some YouTube content, got the tour of the place with Daniel Salatin, Joel's son, ended up hanging out with him for hours. And I was like, hey, man, you run a farm. I know you have better things to do than hang out with us. And he kind of does one of these things where he looks over both shoulders. He goes, we get a lot of, because they have an open door policy. He's like, we get a lot of people that just show up and want to make an Instagram reel or whatever. They show up and they want to extrapolate. They want to take from us. They're using the Polyface brand. And he's like, you guys are cool. Like, you actually took the time to get to know me, to get to know Dad and look around. Yeah. And he's like, I got all the time in the world for you, which is awesome. Because he's like, this is our family herd. This is Lucy Bell. We've had this cow since 2008 and blah, blah, and all this stuff. And so he was teaching us, but we were also building relationships while we were there. And it was amazing. We had no cell service there, none. And we had filmed on our end, and they have a little store in front of where they butcher at. They've got a big room, freezer room, and they process their poultry out back, move it into the freezer, and there's a little country store there. And Joel's office is in that building as well. And they have a table in there. So me and Dud are sitting at the table, and he's like, what are we doing? Because he knows me. I'm very next on the schedule is. And he's like, what are we doing? I was like, Spirit says, wait. He's like, okay. There's no cell service, SOS, there's no connectivity. Well, out of nowhere, my phone for 2 minutes gets service. It goes to 5G full bars for 2 minutes. And my phone starts coming up. And I was able to text somebody who texted somebody who then let Joel know, who was in the office next door, hey, there's some people here who would like to talk to you if they can. If not, no worries, no hard feelings. And then, boom, everything goes dead again. And then Joel's assistant comes walking out and is like, hey, Joel's in the middle of something right now. Can we introduce you to Daniel? I was like, I have no expectations. That'd be cool if he's available. If he's not, whatever. And then, we hung out with Daniel Salatin for half a day and got the tour of the whole place. It's like, that's Grandma's house, and right over here I shot a deer, and all that. Because we went, right, and we just went. We were us. We had conversations with people. Whole thing worked out. And then, I don't know, we filmed 30 videos or something while we were on the road between Patreon and YouTube and the whole nine. And then drove back. I don't remember. I know we did Pastor Bear stuff on the way back. I don't remember what it was. But that opportunity cost was the same. Drive to North Carolina, drive back. Well, while I'm doing that, how many other opportunities can I stack on top of that, right? And then so same investment, outsized return. It's the same investment of time. It's the same investment of money. I still have travel and lodging. Still got all that going on. But because I'm being mindful with the time that I've got, it's like, how many other opportunities can I put inside of this block of time, this 7 days I'm going to be on the road? And I think a lot of people don't approach life that way. They don't even have a basic plan of I'm going to execute on this basic plan. And then because they don't have a basic plan, they're like, the event sucked. Did it? Did the event suck or did you suck?
Yeah.
You got there late. You couldn't find parking. You didn't plan ahead, so there was no lodging because there's an event going on. It sucked. Come on, bro.
What was your energy level like while you were there?
Yeah.
What did you put into it? It's the same thing with jobs. When people are like, "Ah, man, my job sucks. I'm gonna go get a different one." Yeah, okay, copy that. Where I'm at sucks. I'm gonna go move and just go to a better place. Yeah, okay, copy that.
Yep.
Everywhere that you go, you take you with you.
Yep.
And you gets to decide whether this sucks or not.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're sitting there and you're like, man, this sucks. Like these guys are talking together, and these guys are, I'm stuck in the middle, and nobody's talking to me. Okay, like you're making a choice,
Yep.
and your energy output is gonna dictate what energy input comes back. You talk about, I call them energy vampires, the people on the internet who are there to extract energy, time currency from others so that they can, build themselves up, which I don't know that I blame them, because if you look at any e-commerce training guide that you can find, that's literally what they're telling them to do.
Yep.
That is, there's an entire generation who have built a lot of wealth, frankly, and large followings on social media, and that is their primary goal, and they are succeeding because they're taking your time, energy, and they're saying this is how this is how you do it too. It's like a whole Amway thing.
Yep.
But there are other ways. You can also choose to just be genuine, be genuinely interested, be a little bit humble. When you're talking to someone who knows what they're talking about, even if they don't know the thing that you're talking about, they can tell if you're bullshitting.
Oh yeah.
I've been through enough that if someone comes to me with a topic that I don't know about, but like it's just words and words and words. Like I'm just talking blah, blah, blah. And then this and this, and this is how you do this. And this is how you do this. Really?
Yeah.
I like to say that an expert can take a topic and like really lay it out and like in really depth and like, like they could draw it on a whiteboard, and like there could be like multiple layers, and there's Pythagoras math there, and there's all this stuff. That's an expert in a topic. But a master in a topic can take all of that crap and turn it into a sentence that you can understand.
Yep.
And there's a difference. There's a quality difference there. And the masters, the people who really know what they're talking about, they don't want you to show up and be an expert. They don't care. They actually want you to show up and just turn your radar on.
Yep.
And just point it at them and say, you know a lot about this. What's one thing that, you would love to share with me today? Like based on everything you're looking around, what's one thing that's just, hitting you in the brain today that you'd be okay with sharing with some random stranger?
Yep.
The quality of that kind of an introduction, as opposed to, hey, it's Bear from the internet. Have you seen? I love you. I consume all your content, man. Everything you do, man, I am all over it. So, and I mean, you're very prolific at generating content. So that would indicate to me that a person is now spending 70 or 80 hours a week consuming content.
Right.
Not just yours. It would be stuff in the entire genre. Again, totally fine if that's what you do. There's an opportunity cost.
Yeah. What are you doing with the information that you're consuming? Right. I run into a lot of that. People that research, air quote, for the sake of researching. If it, at some point, and we recognize this as, paralysis by analysis, right?
Sure.
But the paralysis indicates that you were going to do something in the first place. And so in a lot of cases, it's not even paralysis by analysis. It's just mental masturbation. One day, Ed, when I do this thing, I'm going to be so well informed about how to do it.
When I do it for the first time.
And the fact of the matter is, a lot of the information that myself and other people are putting out isn't even relevant to you unless you're doing things in the first place, because there's no practical application if there's nothing to apply it to. So my basic assumption is you're already doing things. Whatever it might be, you're already reading the Bible. You're already storing food, or you're already training. You're already doing these things. And so I'm going to tell you the mistakes that I've made so that I can help you be better because you're already doing things. Yeah. I don't think that I'm a good motivator, and I also know that I'm not a good apologist. I don't talk people onto Christ. And that's okay, because there's plenty of people who do. I talk to people who have already found Christ, and they're like, I found Christ, but the church sucks.
I'm not sure what to do with it.
Yeah.
There's this feeling in here.
Yeah.
What's next?
Next steps, exactly, right? Like, or like I got a rucksack and I'm already rucking, but I don't know, do I need a pole axe in my rucksack? It's like, I don't know. Why do you need a pole axe? You know, those kinds of things. So there's already an assumption there that you're doing things. I don't view myself as a motivator. I think I want to talk to people that are already motivated, already driven, already making moves, and they're looking for clarification on what's the next move to make. And that's where, to the extent that I have any subject matter expertise, is because I've made a lot of moves. You know, if people, you know, like, hey, Bear, if somebody asks me, hey, I want to, and I get this question constantly from established and from new content creators. You know, I'm talking about lots of channels that people have watched on YouTube, lots of them, and a lot of the big ones that, and it doesn't matter who, I'm not going to name drop, but I've had a lot of people come to me and they're like, dude, how do you do what you do? Like, how do I make my channel better? And I'm like, your channel's 50 times the size of mine. Why are you asking me? And they're like, and it's consistency. It's like, you're so damn consistent and your audience is super engaged. Yeah, because a big audience doesn't matter if they're not engaged. Big audience is worthless if they're not paying attention. It's just a vanity number. You know, that goes back to the 4 quarters philosophy. I'd rather have 4 people that want to be here than 100 people that don't. I can do way more with 4 highly motivated individuals than I can do with 100 people that don't care.
Yep.
Right? And that goes back to the motivation thing. I'm not here to motivate anybody. I'm assuming you're already motivated. I'm assuming you already want to be here. Now, small group of people that want to be here, we can do amazing things. The world was revolutionized by 1 rabbi and 12 homies, and one of them was trying to kill the rabbi.
Yeah.
Okay? So, like, we don't need a bajillion people. Give me a dozen. Oh, we're up. Like, we can change the world with a dozen people. But a lot of people consume content hoping that they can, let's say I need to get motivated and I start watching Ed's content. It's like, if I can just catch some of the fire that Ed has, I can take some of that fire and put it in my belly too. And it's like, yeah, but that's really hard to do. It's really hard to, if we just think about this, look at it from a preparedness standpoint or a bushcraft standpoint. I have a fire and I want to take fire with me where I'm going next. So I got to transfer this fire. There are ways to do that. But what happens is I'm walking with this fire. I have to constantly tend it. And really all I've got is an ember. I've got an ember. And I still need to know how to make a fire when I get to where I'm going to. Because the ember's not a fire. The ember is the precursor to a fire.
It's the information about fire.
The best you could take from me, from my fire, is an ember.
Yep.
And you still have to know how to build your own fire when you get to where you're going.
Yeah.
And versus, you know, walking around with an Elon Musk flamethrower on your back or whatever. So I don't even know how we got into that rabbit hole. Whatever.
I think people are generally attracted to what you do because it's evident you're a practitioner. Not that you're the best person at it, but that you take information and then put it into practice. And you can tell on the internet the people who are taking somebody else's words, a subject matter expert, another practitioner, somebody who's just putting words out there, and then using them as weapons or as just maybe for clout, whatever.
Yep.
It's such a cheap way of saying it, for clout. That's been overused. But they're taking other words and putting them out on the internet. It's like, oh no, actually it should be done like this. This is how you do it. You got to do this step and this step and this step, which might be factually correct. But what you're supposed to do is take that video, a 120-minute video from him, and then go out and practice that a bunch of times. And then find somebody else who made a similar video or a video about the same topic and practice it their way a bunch of times. Most of the stuff I know, multiple people taught me how to do different ways.
Yep.
And my version of it is a distilling of all of that.
Yep.
And most of the stuff I know because I went and found whatever expert or master that I could find and paid them or somehow found a way to get them to teach me. And I turned my radar on and I did exactly what they told me to do.
Well, and skills stack, right? So you have to have foundational skills, right? Like we just ran this night class. It was amazing. And portion of this night class, I was running the Op 4, oppositional forces, and
Yes, I saw you in the thermals.
yeah, I know. I knew you had thermals.
I brought thermals. Yes. which I got through customs. Thank you, CBP. If any of you in the Bear Nation are CBP and watching, I appreciate you this trip.
We'll talk on the next one. But yeah, so we set this ambush. There's the details don't matter because I don't want to ruin it for the next night responder class.
Agreed.
But sidebar, one of the things that I think really helped with the keeping the class genuine was Cadre knew there was Op 4. Op 4 knew there were students, but Op 4 didn't know exactly what the students were doing, and Cadre of the students didn't know exactly what Op 4 was doing.
Correct.
And so that helped keep it a lot more realistic. We know there's bad guys out there, right? And from the standpoint of the Op 4, the students are the bad guys. From the standpoint of the students, the Op 4 are the bad guys.
Once they started shooting.
Yes.
They were unknowns before that.
Well, yeah, there was a decision tree that they could have
Right.
made very early on that would have prevented multiple ambushes.
And for those of you who took part in this, maybe you don't have to tell everybody on the internet how that went, because that is a wonderful, very
Yep.
well written. You guys did an amazing job of setting that up early on. It really helped drive what happened for the rest of the exercise.
Dudley's making sign language saying, put the mic in front of your face. There you go.
I love you, microphone.
Yes. We're gonna.
Thanks, Dudley.
I'm gonna put some nice lady's hair on my microphone. Hey, girl. So, the Cadre didn't know, and the Op 4 didn't know. There was a lot of unknowns, right?
Yep.
Just big picture understanding. So we set up this ambush. The ambush goes well for Op 4, poor for students,
Yep.
which is how an ambush is supposed to go, right?
If I'm gonna conduct an ambush, I don't want to lose.
Right, 100%. And the students had the Op 4 outnumbered minimum 3-1, and yet Op 4 they were getting their work done. Okay, and so I'm sitting there with Pastor Joe Fox, 17 years of Special Forces, and we're sitting in my side by side after this had all gone down, conducting a little AAR, and he was like, "Hey, who set up this ambush?" I was like, "That was me." He goes, "You did a really good job. Thank you." And so, but here's the thing, right? I can go read the field manuals on how to set up an ambush. I can understand intellectually, right? So we're going to set left security, right security, rear security. We're going to do a leader's recon. We're going to put support here. We're going to put assaulters here. And here's our limit of advance. All that textbook stuff, right? Until you do it and do it and do it and do it, the textbook stuff doesn't matter. And then conduct an ambush assumes so many things, like you know how to work the safety selector on your rifle, and you know what your field of fire is, and and you have the PT to get to this point in the first place
At the right time, right place. Your
100%.
magazines work, right? And don't just start failing you in the middle of your ambush.
Yeah,
that's unfortunate.
Right. Your rifle has been cleaned and is serviceable. You can hit what you're aiming at.
Yeah.
Like all these other subtasks that go inside of there, it starts with like 4 rules of firearm safety, right? It starts there. Can I trust you to move around me with a rifle, right?
When you can't see where the dangerous end is aimed.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Middle of the night is the context.
Oh, yeah. It was dark. It was a beautiful night. The
best.
The weather was a gift from the Creator.
100%. And I said it so many times. Like,
Yep.
God is smiling on you.
Yeah.
Which, next time you do night training, no, this is your one.
So-
Next time it's snow.
Yeah, we had rain in the forecast. Of course, the false weather prophets are always wrong, especially around here, because we've got these mountains and these hills, and what looks like's coming at us oftentimes will break and go around us.
Yep.
But we had rain in the forecast, and my hope was that it was going to piss rain and make all the technology useless. I was really hoping for that. Now I know a lot of people came because they wanted to run nods. They wanted to have and a lot of people were having their first experience with nods. which is a hell of an intro. But anyway, my hope was that it would pour rain and you wouldn't be able to see 10 feet in front of you, aided or unaided, because that's really, really good training. But the father knew the students we were working with.
I think you hoped to really early on and really soundly convince them that this is probably not what they want to do. This is definitely not what they imagine it to be.
Yep.
And they probably don't want to put themselves, set up their life in such a way that they need to go and try to fight some entity bigger, stronger, tougher, smarter, and wiser than them.
Yep.
You said it many times. You said, like, do you think you can go fight the government now? It's probably not a great idea to think that way.
Yep.
Right? There's probably better things that you can do with your life so you have a more fulfilling, stable, loving life. And I think you wanted them to know that. And I think definitely the scenario ended up in such a way that it was like they actually found that out and they didn't need the extra bear effect.
There was the need for convincing was minimal.
Very minimal.
And I do think that everybody who can possess these skills should possess and exercise these skills.
Yeah.
I just don't think that anybody should be eager to use them. If we get to the point that we need to know how to patrol in the middle of the night and set up an ambush, dude, things are all the way sideways. I have a wife and children. You have a wife and children. I don't want that.
Yeah.
I really don't want that. And I can not want that. And here's complex concepts. I cannot want to have to use these skills while also possessing and training these skills, and while also hoping that things will get better, because I want my wife and my children to be safe, and I want my children to be more prosperous than I've been, while also understanding that hope's not a method, and understanding that governmentally, as far as having a representative republic in the United States of America, that shit's gone by the wayside, and we don't. And that's a complex stew of shit.
There's nuance.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance in there. But I don't want to have to go fight the government. I don't want to fight the government. And one of the things we brought up during this night training is like, and this is just ground elements. There's no artillery here. There's no ISR. There's no air support. This is just dudes on the ground with rifles. You start introducing all that other stuff. One drone with thermal, you're done. Your patrol's done.
One piece of DIY artillery.
Yep.
Because so most of this is a Kwangshan.
Yep.
Most of the students were running Baofeng radios. I submit that most of you out there either use Baofeng right now as your primary, backup radio, or have a bunch of them because they're cheap, easy, and accessible. Over in Eastern Europe, right now, if you take one of these out on the battlefield, spool it on and hit PTT and stand there, eventually a mortar is going to come land on your head.
Yep.
Because of the signals, the wide, easy to find signals that come out. And with a large element, even with a small element of 20 or 30 people who have radios on, who are making emissions throughout time, you're very easy to direction find. I'm not talking like, ham radio fox hunt direction finding. I'm talking about oppositional forces not having a hard time figuring out exactly where on the side of the mountain you are and how fast you're walking.
Yep.
And one piece of cobbled together DIY artillery or one field expedient ground level claymore mine.
Yep.
And everything goes to shit.
Yep.
And so you are not as well.
You can say it, bro.
You're not invincible.
Yeah.
You'll never be invincible. And the magical superpowers that technology can bring you will not replace your experience in doing this over and over and over and not doing it the easy way.
Yeah.
Doing it the hard way. You talked about the first ruckus, and I was slated to be there. And my mother, who I love very much, broke her femur the weekend before. And I needed to be up there and take care of that instead. So I rucked remotely, and I went to a place. There was a several kilometer. We've got a great rifle range where I'm at, and there was nobody there. It's still the middle of winter for us, or the tail end of winter.
Yep.
And fortunately for me, the 2 days before, it had both snowed and then rained, and so it was a hard crust of ice with soft snow underneath. And so my ruck was even harder. And I had in my head some idea of how long it would take me to go back and forth long enough to make up the miles or kilometers in my case. And it took me longer.
Yep.
And it was dark when I started and almost dark when I finished.
Wow.
And and there was nobody else there,
Yeah.
right? Well, there was no other people there.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, you can type all the things you want on the internet, but there's a quality to what you do, to the sort of the genuineness that is recognized when you're face to face with someone and meeting them based on whether you actually do it. Mm-hmm. And I think it becomes evident. That's sort of where we started this little rabbit hole, is like all of these students who came and did this 2 nights ago, and they spent all day out in the sun,
Yep.
getting sprayed of, well, not a fire hose, a water hose sprayed
I
on them.
miss my fire hose so bad. It's coming back. Yeah.
Selectively. I mean, the point is they were pushed really hard, many of them right to the edge throughout the daytime.
Intentionally. They did 2 full days of training before night responder.
Yeah.
And they had 2.5 hours in between the end of the day portion going into the night portion. So just enough time to catch a nap, eat some food, check your gear, right? Not a lot of time. And all of that was done intentionally because the scenario, and night responder is a scenario. The whole thing is a 12-hour long immersive scenario. And the details of which don't matter because we will absolutely do it again. And I don't want to ruin it for the next class of students. But you are in SHTF when this happens. And so it is not, things have fallen apart. There's a whole in brief. You get an intel packet, so you have a thumbnail sketch of what's happening, right? These are less than ideal situations already. And so thinking that like, well, when the world ends, I'm just gonna. You might have been putting out, I mean, we made them put out physically for 2 days before they had to go run this night op. And not a ton. They didn't cut firewood with an axe 12 hours a day for 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
But they did do some PT, all right, and they were already getting smoked. Do you think that's going to happen when the world ends? And that's part of why, do stuff. I know what it's like to cut firewood now because we do, or to run sheep and cattle because we do, or to build your own structures because we do. All the physicality that we are going to have to do when the world ends, we're already doing. Now, in large part, right now, it is aided by technology, and a lot of people think technology, they think ones and zeros, but a log splitter's technology, skid steer's technology, a truck is technology, right? And so we are aided by that for sure, but we still, I still split wood with an axe, right? And that kind of goes back to your point that you were mentioning earlier. When you're doing things, you should already be doing things so that it shortens the learning curve and decreases the pain curve for when you have to do it for real. But when you're doing things and you're surrounded by other people that are doing things and attracted to other people that are doing things, nobody gives a shit about I got this rifle and this holster for this pistol. Nobody cares. I don't care. And nobody else cares. I'm not surrounded by people that are like, well, did you polish the feed ramps? It's like, does your shit work? Your shit works? Cool. Let me see your shit works. Let me see you make your shit work. Yep, we're up. Cool. Next. It's like, the gun doesn't matter if you can't hit the target. And you don't need a super duper cool guy gun to hit the target. You need fundamentals to hit the target. Mm-hmm. And I would submit you need to be able to hit the target with the air quote worst gun possible. Because, with your mil spec trigger, you're just trash AR. Like, okay, iron sights, and I like iron sights for a lot of things, right? Like, do you possess the fundamentals for rifle or pistol or chainsaw or cooking with fire or bread from scratch or butchering or whatever it is? Can you do it at the lowest common denominator under the hardest conditions? Yeah, okay, you own that skill set. Now, you can add on top of that if you want. They're called fundamentals. They're foundational skills for a reason. Then you can build on top of them. But nobody who's doing shit actually cares about all the gewgaws and the doodads. Like, I don't care if we go butcher a sheep. I don't care what knife you brought as long as it's sharp and you know how to use it. No, nobody cares. I don't care what your fire lay is if we're going to burn the offal as long as you can make a fire. And so those kinds of things. And a lot of the internet warriors of what, and I'm not an actual warrior. Like, I've never worn a uniform. I've never pretended I've worn a uniform. The Father has just blessed me with a bunch of homies that have. And because we have context and rapport, they teach me, which is awesome. And I built that by going and meeting people and talking to people, bringing it back around full circle. But none of the homies that I have actually care about your kit other than it works, because they have their own kit and they know that it works. And if you go up to like and a lot of people don't even know who they're talking to. They'll walk over to a guy and it's like, oh yeah, man, you got that thing on your rifle? Dude, I heard that optic sucks. You should maybe get this one. It's like, that MFer right there did 20 years in the teams, and you watched the Grand Thumb video. You know what I mean?
I do.
Nothing against Grand Thumb. I'm just saying, like, that's not research. That's not experience.
That's why every one of these videos that you watch, unless you're like, all right, cool, now I'm going to go try this myself a bunch of times.
Yep.
All you're doing is that, consuming content. You're watching a television show.
Yep.
And yay for that.
Yep.
I mean, watch all the TV you want. And if it's going to be, you they watch, and again, like I said, you're very prolific. I cannot watch all of what you produce.
Yep.
I can't watch hardly any of it.
Yep.
Often I'll pop into a live stream, make my presence known for a second while I'm doing something else. So unless I actually hear my name called out,
Yep.
I'm not watching the chat.
Yep.
And that's not because I don't love you or what you do.
I get it.
It's not because I'm there to just, drop myself in and, buff up and like get you to like, hey, look, shout out to the Iridium group. It's because I want to drop in, I want to show support,
Yep.
and I'm busy.
Yep.
And I would love to see a lot of these people that we know who are really easy to find on the internet all the time. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see them maybe a little more difficult.
Yeah.
To see, like, yeah, sorry, I couldn't be there. I was doing shit.
Yep.
You don't even have to explain to me what the shit was. I don't need to know. You're like, oh, I was doing this and this and this. You know what? Listen, you're an adult doing adult stuff. Mm-hmm. I want you to be a very dangerous person so you can demonstrate to the world how good you can be.
There's a weird thing that happens. It's a lot like I don't like it, frankly, I don't like it when preachers get paid. I understand it, but I don't like it when preachers get paid, because now we're going to compromise the word of God so that it hits the ears appropriately for the people who are doing the paying. And I don't want to compromise the word of God.
Okay.
Right? I don't. Now I get it. Trust me, I'm an ordained pastor. It is work. And it's work predominantly dealing with people. It's way less about preparing a sermon. If you have a relationship with the Creator and you have the Holy Spirit, the Spirit will give you the words. I know this because I just went through this.
Yep.
I didn't know what to say.
Yep.
I was like, Father, what do I talk about?
Yeah.
Give me 2 words, faith and joy.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. And then he gave me a download on faith and joy. Simcha and emunah. It was beautiful. Cool. It's way less that. It's way more dealing with people, right? And the Torah says a workman is worth their hire. And I get it. But once we start monetizing the Word of God, it's possible for the Word of God to get compromised because of the monetization. And to a much lesser extent, when we go to content creation, when content creator became a job, like in the early days of YouTube, people had channels because they wanted to teach other people and interact with other people. And then once we monetized it, it turned into entertain other people. Keep as many eyeballs on the platform as possible, because YouTube is an advertising platform masquerading as a content platform. Instagram and Facebook are data gathering platforms masquerading as content platforms, right? And so people don't understand that. They get stuck in an algo hole and just keep scrolling and watching and scrolling and watching. And like the number one source of revenue for Meta, Facebook and Instagram, is your digital exhaust. It's all of your we call them targets. They're selectors. this tall. He's a male or whatever genders there are.
There's two.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. 35 to 45, and here's all the things that he's into. And because for me on my end, let's say I want to run ads against Ed, right? I want to target somebody like Ed because there's a high likelihood he's going to buy my product. I have to be able to take Ed and put him in a box, right? And then
Never put Snowbird in a box.
no snowbirds in boxes, right? But I gotta know I need to have descriptors of you so you can be adequately targeted.
Yep.
That's how Facebook and Instagram make their money.
Yep.
They're not content platforms.
Yep.
That's what they do. And then everybody's like, they collect our data. We need legislation to say not to collect our data. They'll shut that Meta will shut their own platform down if they can't collect your data, because the data is where the money's at for them. All that to say, this content creation moved in the direction of entertainment, not community and not education. And there are still some old school content producers out there, but it's moved into the direction of entertainment and paid advertising.
Yes.
And those two things have really watered down the content to the point that the people who are consuming that feel like they're in a community and they're being taught, and they're actually being advertised to and entertained.
Flash with the lack of substance.
Right. And they're not the same thing.
Yes.
And so just be on the lookout for that. Ask yourself the next time you're consuming a piece of content, am I learning something or am I just being entertained?
You talk about money, and it's funny. It's like there's like a division in all of society between the people who think in terms of money, and then this sort of next stratosphere. And I know you know some of them, and I know some of them whose net worth starts with M's and B's.
Yep.
And from the ones that I've talked to who've been gracious enough to really be honest, they don't think about money.
Yep.
They're interested in time currency.
Yep.
Specifically yours. That is what the world runs on. Money is this sort of more solid substance that at the level of which we're exchanging time currency, it can be broken down, just like the metric system, which most of you probably don't like. It's like, there's much smaller gradations. And so that's where money exists. But the world and social media predominantly runs on the currency of our time.
Yep.
Which is the most important currency we have to offer.
Yep.
Because it's the most finite.
Yeah, it's irreplaceable.
And so the more of your attention or time that you give to that without getting something in return, it's not a fair exchange of value.
So you are here currently in the States, spending your time with us.
I agree.
Appreciate it.
I'm present.
What do you do when you're not here?
I'm an industrial welding pipeline pressure vessel structure inspector.
Okay.
Have been for over 20 years. I hold every certification that's really available in that industry. Predominantly, what I do is go out and test welds, check welders, service industry, pipelines, construction, hydroelectric. There's a lot of hydro in BC where I'm from, and that's the technical side. From training side, I'm a firearms safety instructor in Canada, which of course in my country you have to take a 2-day course or 1-day course, 10 hours worth of instruction on safety before you're allowed to purchase a firearm or ammunition.
Right.
Now there's all sorts of, and I'm going to preface this. People like to get wrapped around the axle about the whole gun situation. I really don't give a shit about it. The same way I don't care how beautiful your gun is. I think you should be dangerous with a fire extinguisher. And so if all you have is a single shot break action shotgun, then you're just like, well, this is the tool that I have. That's where I come from in my philosophy. And you don't have to follow that. But just like if you at me on the social medias about like, what about the, Justin Trudeau and the guns? I don't care.
Yeah.
Not because it's not important, but because time currency. Let's go back to that. So I teach the firearm safety course so that people can get their hands on, predominantly in my country, just shotguns and hunting rifles, right? ARs and anything that sort of looks or feels like them has been banned for 4 years. Last year, I think last year, pistols, like no more pistols, right? We can't get any more pistols. Only the criminals can bring the pistols in now. And all of you that have pistols can only take them to the gun range. And so, but there's more and more people, as this sort of clamps down, there's more and more people saying, well, if the only way that I can do this and sort of have sustainability and self-reliance is like going through this class, I guess I'll just go through the class. And the class doesn't teach you how to work with firearms. It's safety. Like if I had to distill it, it's like, hey, if you were to walk up to somebody else's closet and see a rifle there, I'll teach you how to unload it.
Right.
So there's no firing in it. It's not the same thing as what a person would experience down here. And, there's a good prerequisite to teaching people basic firearm safety and making it like, hey, you really need to do this.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of government forcing, like, of it being legislated. Mm-hmm. There's a level at which, I understand in concept that's good. I don't like the execution of it. But, I mean, one of the chief things I was counseling all our students on the night responder was muzzle discipline in the dark. Because when they couldn't see their muzzles, they were pointed at all of their friends and family in the scenario.
Uh-huh.
And just, they had no idea.
Yeah, I saw a fair amount of guys who, little things matter, right? And you don't know that little things matter until you do it.
Yes.
Their sling setups were all dicked up. And so then their rifles or carbines were hanging on them horizontal. And so no matter where they turned, they were flagging everybody else. And it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, that thing needs to be pointed at the sky or at the ground. And that was having people there that know what they're doing to be able to correct that in the moment and be like, dude, fix this. Okay. But yes, continue.
Very important. And the sort of thing, like, half the day is night. Yep. And most structures that you may go inside can be made dark really fast. Mm-hmm. So being able to do these things, having that proprioceptive awareness, that, body, mind awareness of, like, knowing, just, if I can do this with my eyes closed, and if I'm holding a rifle, the muzzle's pointed at the ground. Yep. Okay, for that.
Well, that goes back to dwell time, right? One of the things that I've had drilled in my head is like, if I have a rifle with me, right? And which I do, like, 24/7, because America. If this is attached to my body, if it's a slung rifle, there will be at least a hand on it at all times. Mm-hmm. Okay, unless I've got slung over my back, right? If I'm carrying it across my back, but if it's on the front of my body, there will be a hand on it at all times.
That's just practical, so it doesn't hit you in the junk when you're walking around.
100%, right? But also, it's harder for anybody else to take it from me, or for it to get caught in this. Dude, bushes have ruined more patrols because people don't have their shit policed, and it's just, they're yard selling their shit everywhere. It's getting ripped off, or, Velcro is an adequate closure for this thing, and it's like, actually, it's not. And where'd my canteen go? Thanks for the canteen, bro. I appreciate it. Things like that. But if I have this slung rifle, the angle of the grip, I've interfaced with this grip for so many times, the thousands of hours with this hand on this grip. I know where my muzzle's pointed at because of the angle of the grip. And now it's something that's like, it's subconscious esoteric. It's not, I don't think about it anymore. It's just, it's just there. It's one of those trillion data points that I'm picking up every second of, like, everything's where it's supposed to be, because I know when my hand is on the grip here, then the muzzle is there. And that just, the little micro adjustments in the grip become major adjustments at the end of the barrel, which it's just context and dwell time. The more you do it, the less you have to think about it. What's that? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Fast is final.
Yeah.
And like what you're talking about is basic shit. It's fundamental.
Yep.
And the other overused ones, right? Professionals just practice till they can't get it wrong.
Yep.
And they are masters of the fundamentals, where little stuff like this, the first 200 or 2,000 times that you try to do it where you can't see what you're doing, if you record yourself, you may not be satisfied with the results you get.
Yep.
But eventually, you're going to be like, I remember when I used to put myself on camera and, like, I could tell, like, my eyes were closed or whatever, and I was trying to hold it, and then I'd open my eyes up and it's over here. It's like, wow, that really sucks. time, time,
Yep.
time. Distilling how you're touching it, where your points of control are,
Mm-hmm.
getting your body used to just, no, actually, you get to just hold this here,
Yep.
right? Comfortably on target with minimal muscular input. Pat
Yep.
Mack,
Yep.
right? And he just sit there. He'll just sit there like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's not doing a bunch of extra shit. His body's not stressed out.
Yep.
Time.
Yep. Yeah, I'm a big Pat Mack fan.
Sure.
He came up in the episode we did with Dr. Trevor Wilkins, which I believe was 001. I when I say I'm a big Pat Mack fan, I'm not a fanboy because there's a lot of people that fanboy over Pat Mack and others. Wait, I know Pat likes 1911s. What kind of 19? What did you polish your trigger faces? Like, dude, shut up. Like that. At least for me, none of that shit matters. It's like, can you hit the target with the weapon that you have? Cool. Other than that, not interested. And the answer for Pat is, yeah, absolutely, he can. And I haven't taken any of his pistol courses, although I'd be open to that. But he has online instruction.
Okay.
And I've run through several of the drills that he has, and they're all great drills.
Check that out.
And that kind of goes back to, like, professionals don't need to tell you that they're professional. They just are.
Yeah.
You just know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. There's a lot less fluff involved.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I've been to some courses where it's like, you need to listen to me because I'm the instructor and here's all the cool things that I've done. And it's like, okay, cool. Teach me. And I've had some instructors that have all the way been there, done it. They've got, the three slides of their credentials, and they're like, here's some cool shit that I did. Awesome. I only showed you that so that you would take me seriously. Now let's get into real learning. And that's been great training, for real. But I've had some instructors, it's like a half an hour on and then I was jumping out of airplanes, and then after I was jumping out of it, it's like, dude, shut up.
Yeah.
And some of these classes, bro, you go to these classes, and I won't name names, but man, some of these instructors out there, it's a 4-hour block of instruction, and it's you watching them be cool at a range. No, I want to know how you do that. I don't want to watch you do it. I want to know how you do it.
If I want that, I'll go watch any professional athlete or sports person who I'm never going to measure up to anyways.
Exactly.
I want someone who's made all the mistakes that I'm going to make because he sucked at this and I suck at this. And I want him to fast track me and be like, this and this and this are probably the mistakes you're going to make. Let's just skip all that.
Yep.
And by tomorrow, you'll be 200% better than you are today. And probably 100% better than everyone you know.
Yep.
Because they're all worried about trying to replicate what this freaking master is doing.
Uh-huh.
I teach people to always use the same trigger press. So there's no difference. And to clarify, at the stage that I get people, it's the beginning point.
Yeah.
And I often will say, listen, I'm not your forever instructor. I'm here to walk the path with you for like a few steps. And look, where are we? We're at the beginning of the path.
Yep.
This should tell you that as you progress, you will seek other instruction elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the firearms piece, because in the book, the Canadian Firearms Safety Course, which was written, most recent version, I think, was 2014 by somebody from the 70s. It's phenomenal. We have pistol shooting stance. There's a difference in the book between your rifle shooting stance and your shotgun shooting stance.
Nice.
And like how you shoot a shotgun, obviously, it's written in the book, is different than how you shoot a rifle. With a rifle, you're going to take a lot of time. And you're going to do this breath pause thing that science is like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no pressure gauge on the lungs, so you don't know. But if you inhale and then exhale and then inhale and then exhale, you've got 8 seconds that you can just sit there and do nothing. What? Across what demographic? Please and thank you.
Right.
Old people, young people, big people, small people. It just works. Mm-hmm. That's not how it works in real life. And the same thing with like, oh, well, on your Glock, you need to press with the, either the pad of the finger or the second pad or the crease in between. And on your precision rifle, you need to do it here and there.
Yep.
Tell you what, if you only use the same trigger press for your rifles, your pistols, your freaking heat guns, for everything, what you're guaranteed to be doing is eliminating a variable.
Yep.
And right at the beginning, the number of variables that you can fuck up,
Yep.
that you drop down, you're going to get better fast.
Yep.
And the people around you are going to be like, you're really good at this. Newsflash, not for you, because I saw this when you were teaching the responder class. He was very clear. All of you are now the instructors for the rest of your family.
Yep.
You're going to go back with more knowledge and information than they have statistically. And B, none of what you learned here today can you solidify until you try to teach it to somebody else.
Exactly.
And C, you're being taught by people who've made the same mistakes that you are making and are going to make. And so is your family.
Yep.
They're being taught by you. You're one step on the path now, and they're at step 0.
Yep.
Nobody should be trying to make anybody into a ninja.
Yep.
Choose your figurehead. The thing is, it's that whole celebrity culture where people are like, oh, I got to be XYZ. I say Z, not Z. I got to be that person. So I'm gonna consume all their content. I'm gonna buy all their recommendations, and then all of a sudden I'm gonna be them.
Yeah.
They may not be them.
Yeah. That's a great point. They may not be them. And also, if the Father wanted you to be them, he would have made you them. Right? And
That's a great point.
Yes. If all of the legit operators that I know, and I know many,
Yep.
they don't have to tell you that they're operators. It's obvious. And they do not walk around, shoulders back, chest out. I'm a fucking operator, bro. It's like, actually, you know what they're trying to do? They're trying to be more like normal people so that they don't stick out, as an apex predator in a group of normal people.
I was reviewing some of the thermal footage and night vision footage that I took, and our buddy Q walking around on the battlefield, smooth, erect, rifle up. You're just like, oh, and during the firefights, and he's just like, And you could just see, there's all the students, and they're like, they don't know exactly what's going on. And the Gal4 is over there in the bushes, and there's this one dude just walking, and he's unconcerned.
Yep.
And he's like, yeah, whatever. And it's like, you just look, and you can't, if the footage is released, you won't know who he is because you can't see his face. You can just see his form.
Yep.
But his form shows,
it's obvious.
I am so far beyond this that I am disdainful of the potential perceived threat. I could do this in my sleep.
Yep.
And that's not him looking down on everybody. That's him role modeling the aspiration that everybody on the field wants to become.
Yep. 100%.
It is very cool. It was very cool to have him. Are you going to talk about what PJ's block of instructions is that going out on the internet? What he's talking to them about?
Well, you know what? Let's take a quick break. We'll come back to that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm keeping him alive.
Okay, is he not breathing?
Barely. Hey, one of us.
Okay.
One of us. There you go, Jaden. One of us. Yes. There you go, Jaden. Good job. Just stay with me, okay? Okay? There you go. Good job, Jaden.
Is he breathing?
He's barely breathing. How many times did the tell you?
Okay, you know what, ma'am? You could deal with yourself. I'm not going to deal with this, okay?
No, my friend is dying.
All right, we're back. You brought up Pastor Joe Fox and his patrolling block of instruction. What were you thinking, bro?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I wish, and for the next iteration, we need to get the students sat down or just, hey, listen, it's time for you to all shut the fuck up.
Uh-huh.
All right. This is time for you to be quiet. Radar on and focused at this dude who in the middle of the night is standing there with no night vision and a giant walking stick and a beard that's white down to here and saying, okay, here's what you're going to do. And there's indicators of there's times when it's like, hey, we should probably pay attention to this guy. There was all sorts of indicators, and our wonderful civilian students, we're all like, blah 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 blah. And what about this? And this feels a little weird. I should try to fix this, or now's the time I'm gonna open my backpack and make a bunch of noise. Negative, bro.
Well, so a lot of that, in my experience, because again, I'm a civilian, right, and I'm facilitating access to instructors like this to people like who I used to be, right?
I'm a civilian too, by the way.
Ed Milet says you are best equipped to help the person you used to be.
Yes.
Right. And that's very true in all facets of your life. Well, and I get all the time, people are like, well, Bear, who are you to instruct this stuff? Well, there's certain things, skills that I possess that I can all the way instruct in. There's other skills that I possess the beginning of these skills, or maybe they're basic or intermediate skills, but I'm by no way the professional. But I know the professionals that taught it to me, and they will teach you too if you come to class, right? That's the model there. But a lot of civilians don't understand when we're in a professional learning environment. And that has been something that I have constantly said to every class we've ever had. Hey, you guys need to shut the fuck up and be quiet until it's time to be loud. And every class has struggled with this.
Agreed.
Every single class, and so this is not this is not me knocking the students from the essential responder or the night responder, because every civilian class has struggled with this. Where a lot of times we don't have this issue is in law enforcement. They get it more so. Some occasionally onesie twosie, but they understand it more so. But on the civilian side, it's like you guys talk way too much when you shouldn't be making any noise at all. And then once we start making noise, for example, once the ambush starts, please stop whispering to each other.
Yep.
You need to scream from your diaphragm.
Yep.
It's chaos. There's machine guns going off. There's incendiary devices. Dude, now it's time to make noise.
Dynamic is the word that's been bandied about the internet for the last 15 years, but it is the right word.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we can be loud. Now I need you to be loud.
Yes.
But prior to that, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Be quiet. So I agree that we've seen that over and over and over again. And I guess the collaborative business culture world of like when it comes down to problem solving, and there are times for that. Let's have a discussion and figure this thing out, Ed. It's like, cool. Maybe not after we just took casualties from a machine gun and we're trying to run the hell off of the X. What should, I don't know. Let's ask Tina. Tina, what do you think we should do? They're killing us.
Yep.
Go.
Yep.
And it's also really interesting. I think a lot of people have an expectation of who is going to be the leader. And we've gotten to the point now where you can see it in people when they come in. And oftentimes it's not who everybody else on the team thinks the leader should be.
Right.
It's like, well, that guy's tough and fit, and he went to Army basic training, and it's like, yeah, he could be. Or it could be this lady over here who's, in the corporate world, and she's tasking people out, giving people direction, the whole nine. And we literally had a student who was like, why should I be in charge? I don't know any of this. And Bob was like, look at you. You're already leading. You're already tasking people out. You're already organizing people. People are coming to you with suggestions and saying, should we do this or this? And you're making a call. I'm like, that's leadership, And so we have these, or not we, but a lot of times on the internet, there are these preconceived notions like he who has the Gucciest gear is in charge. It's like, not necessarily, bro. Not necessarily.
In most cases, not.
In most cases, not.
Not for long, anyways. Not until things start happening.
Yeah. Well, they had a patrol leader and then they didn't.
Correct. On purpose.
Yeah.
That was part of the scenario.
Yep.
And to get back to Pastor Joe Fox of Viking Preparedness, who, if you don't know, I can't imagine you don't, but that's fine. His block of instruction was on patrolling, which sounds super basic. It is effectively walking. But the real gold there, which was worth a large portion of what all these students paid, was in a group of people how to quickly distill a primary leader and a secondary leader and get your groups. Yep. Because the truth of the matter is, you can't be trying to figure that stuff out once you're already walking.
Yep.
And so doing that and doing it fast and then being like, okay, listen, we've got a hierarchy established. So now what we're going to do is we're all going to be quiet and we're going to let the people who have to lead. And after, let's call it 10 minutes of like blah, 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 blah. And then, an old ornery guy with a stick saying, hey, listen, it's time for you to start doing what I say and stop doing what you think.
Yep.
I'm paraphrasing Pastor Joe, but he said something like that. And then, quickly, okay, cool. We're going to start doing that. And remarkably, they did. And the leadership structure that was established held through the night. And most of the students did an impeccable job of respecting that.
Yep.
And it is in large part what got them through to the end.
Yep.
You mentioned the women. There were 2 women there. And later on in the evening, one of them who didn't even have night vision. We had 2 leaders leading 2 nights ago with no night vision.
Yep.
Figuring it out, getting their second to be their eyes so that they could be figuring out what needed to happen next. It was beautiful to see. And 2 ladies on this course, they did an amazing job.
Yep.
They did a job that rivaled what you would expect a lot of men to be able to do out the gate.
100%.
And women often do.
Yep.
We talk about this in the firearms world, right? Well, women are usually generally better shooters. It's because they don't come in with a great big ego. It's because they're like, I don't know anything about this. Maybe I'm just going to do whatever the person in charge tells me to do. And then when I get it wrong, because I'm probably going to, because I don't know anything about this, and they give me a correction, I'm just going to do that.
Yep.
And, I think the funny thing about that is, like, we often say the firearm is supposed to be the equalizer. It's the great equalizer. It's the parity in force, right?
Right.
Tiny-ass woman can take a 9mm and be at a force equalization with a 350-pound man, assuming she knows how to use it. There's nuance there, but generally speaking. And that's great for women because they generally start lower on the level as far as force goes. Maybe men have a problem with that because they're like, well, wait a second. So now we're at equal force. I need more force. I'm going to be good at this. I'm naturally good at this, right?
Right.
I say, and I got this from James Yeager, a dear friend of mine who rests in peace. Men are born thinking they know how to do 3 things well.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Fight, shoot, and fuck.
Yep.
And the truth is, they probably need training in all 3. and I say that, and it's a little crass. I know. The point is to get you to break out of the ego lock that you might not realize you're in. You show up to the range, you're like, I can't look bad.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, that's not acceptable. I have to show up here and like look good. I have to show up here and show all these people who are here to teach me how good I am. The people who show up and don't do that often do very well.
That's the whole point of training. And one of the things I was telling this class and every other class, this is the place you want to fail. Here's where you want to make mistakes.
So much.
This is the judgment-free zone here. You're surrounded by experts. Ask your questions here. Make your mistakes here so that when it matters, you're making fewer mistakes. You're probably not going to make 0 mistakes. That takes a career of training and then doing, right? And then even then, things still go to shit pretty quick.
If you don't come to class and screw up, you either didn't try, put no effort in and didn't do anything, or you didn't go to class, frankly.
Yeah.
We all know you're going to fail. Mm-hmm. We all know you're not going to be perfect. That's the point.
So, and again, we were talking about this off camera, the training everybody learned. I mean, and the cadre there, we've got over 100 years of experience in the some of the cadre.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh,
in some of the cadre. And they had notes. They had pages of notes. I have notes. Yep. Everybody had notes. We're all... The goal should be to always be constantly improving, right? One of the things I was talking about with Pastor Joe, after we were sitting in the side by side after that first ambush, and we were talking about how the students responded or didn't respond to the external stimulus, and
which we're probably not gonna go into
nope.
too much depth.
That's
good.
Yeah.
Good experience there.
It's great. But it's mindset. Some of these people had the mindset and some of them didn't, right? And if you think about, maybe bring it back around to preparedness and SHTF, man, right? One of the things I said to PJ, I said, these are members of the Bear Nation. These are people that also consume his content.
Yep.
These are people that at some level probably already have been training.
Yep.
They have the equipment.
They're the person in
If
their
things
family.
go sideways,
Yeah.
this is who we have to work with.
Yep.
And he was like, oh, shit. I was like, yeah. But it gets back to, like, the skills that I have, to the extent that I have them, has been because I've been around the military since I was a kid. I grew up in the woods, right? So these have always just been natural to me. It's just the way we do things, right? And then I've had a bunch of people pour into me over a bunch of years, and then I've went and taken what they have given me, and then went and applied it. And what's the best way to hold a rifle? Depends.
Yep.
What are we doing?
Yep.
And so de facto to say, well, it has to be done this way. Under what context does it have to be done this way? Difference between a protocol and an algorithm.
Yep.
Right.
For sure.
And I'm just a normal guy, in my early 40s too. And I've gotten to the point now where it's like, I'm fairly competent, but I'm in no way an expert at any of these things. And so we have a lot of people who are just getting started or who are late to the party, who are trying to play catch up. You need to make all the mistakes you can make in training now, so that if we ever have to do this for real, you have the skill set and, more importantly, the mindset to be able to execute in the moment, right? And there were some people when the simulated bullets, because this was a blank fire training, right?
Simulated grenades too, by the way.
Yeah, that's crawl,
Very,
walk,
very safe.
crawl, walk, run.
Yep.
We start with lecture.
Yep.
And we move to, you're going to navigate through the woods in the dark during the middle of the night. So we had some people that responded to the external stimulus well. They wanted to control the engagement, right? They were shooting back. They were trying to maneuver. We had some other people. We'd have a whole block of instruction at 3 o'clock in the morning on, we don't stand in the middle of a field when machine guns are shooting at us. Facts, right? And for some of these people, like, this was like paradigm shattering. It's like, we're not we're not the English during the Revolutionary War.
That's what I said. Yeah, you're not the British line infantry.
Exactly. We're not gonna...
you could be back or down. Pick one. Up is a terrible choice right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
I like to make British jokes because I'm Canadian, you see.
Yeah. Well, we're American.
You like to make British jokes because you're American.
Do you know that independence from the British is the most commonly celebrated holiday in the world?
No, but I'm not surprised.
Once every 6 days, a nation celebrates. Take that, Britain.
Yeah.
So we talked about who you are and what you do a little bit. What do you see as maybe the primary problem and the primary causation with, this is a question I like to ask, with men in general today? Like, given the state of the world that we're in right now, where are men falling flat on their face and why?
Men are afraid to be dangerous. Men are afraid to be dangerous is such a... People can take it out of context.
Yeah.
And I mean, people can take any word either of us says right now out of context if they choose. So, choose to suspend your disbelief and just take it for what it is. But you have generations, a couple by now, of men who've been conditioned to be safe rather than be sorry. And for tens or hundreds of thousands of years before that, the role of the male of this species was to do the things that might end up getting them sorry, for the betterment of those that they needed to be in charge of, protect, take care of. And so there's a lack of that. And when you distill it, I think that men are afraid, for whatever reason, to give their children controlled hardships, to make their children have to fail at things and in a safe way.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think your job as a man is to be a father. And I think your job as a father is to provide safety for your children while they do things that cause them to fail, that allow them to grow and develop on their own and come up with strategies to solve their own problems.
That's something that Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about, is have your children do dangerous things safely.
Yeah.
You know, why do you think it is that men have been conditioned to be safe rather than sorry?
Fear.
Fear. Okay. Fear of what? What are they afraid of?
Women.
I think that's accurate.
Fear of growth. Fear of challenge.
Yeah.
The condition is, listen, if you just stay where you're at, everything's fine right now. It's probably always going to be fine. It's never always been fine. We live and we've sort of grown the last couple of generations in this bubble of history that has never existed before.
Yep.
And may never exist again.
Yep.
And to think that this is the whole summation of how humans have been forever
Yeah.
is wrong. And then to now look at different practical facets of how humans are. Humans being are a collection, a facet of different things that we consider traits and attributes which we consider to be positive and negative, that have different causes, different effects. There's lots of them that we say you just can't do these days. And, you know, lots of them for good reason. We want harmony. We want peace.
Yep.
We want prosperity. Generally, we want everyone to be doing better. And there are traits that humans have that are against that. We are still literally going around the planet killing each other.
Yep.
That's not because of a learned pattern of life or a condition. That is a trait of humanity. It's a facet of what we are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know how to do that, how could you ever know how to not do that?
Yeah.
How could you control it?
That's a good word. I agree that people are very much so trying to play it safe, and playing it safe, to your point, in an unprecedented point in history. Like, our baseline normalcy is the pinnacle, right? Like, one of my favorite graphs is if you graph the population of Texas over the development in commercial heating and cooling, they are the same. The better air conditioning got, the more people moved to Texas. Imagine that, right? And it's so, like, in a lot of ways, these technological advancements have made the planet more conducive to people, right? And we have therefore gotten softer. And voluntarily engaging in hardship is something that a lot of people don't do anymore. And it's one of the underlying tones of this channel and everything we do is voluntarily engage in hardship, so that when you have to involuntarily engage in hardship, you're good at it. You're better at it than you would be if you hadn't, for the preservation of life, right? And however you want to take that, whether it's the preservation of your family or the preservation of the species as a whole, so that life may continue. And talking with Dr. Trevor in episode 1, he was like, you know, the two things that tend to get men in trouble are procreation and high-risk activities. But if you look at the history of man, dude, that's what we're built for. We're built for procreation. We're built for high-risk activities. And I think the reason why men get in trouble with that is because we don't, societally, we don't allow that, or we've perverted those things so much. I mean, we simulate high-risk activities with video games, you know, instead of just going and doing them, doing dangerous things safely. We simulate procreation with, you know, OnlyFans and
Also
Instagram
video
whores.
games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
also video games.
Yeah,
Exactly
yeah.
right. Rather than like, hey, find your wife, love your wife, be
Yep.
fruitful and multiply. Right? Like there's a right way and a wrong way to do these things. But if you look at it generationally, whether it's from an evolutionary standpoint or from a biblical standpoint, everybody knows where I stand. Regardless of that, it's like if you successfully reproduced yourself, right? You got the procreation part down. The high risk activities are arguably less high risk now, right? And I do want to be around for my children. I
Yeah.
love my children.
Yeah.
I love my wife.
Yeah.
I'm commanded to lead my wife and raise my children up in the way that they should go.
Yep.
That's a fact. That comes from the Creator. At what point, like, if I'm an Israelite and I got to go fight the Philistines, I don't get to use my wife and my children as an excuse to not go fight the Philistines unless I'm in the first year of my marriage. It literally says in the Torah, hey, in the first year, we don't take those men to war because they haven't got to know their wife. They haven't established their vineyard. They haven't built their house, right? They're just getting started. Don't take those men to war. And it also says, don't take a timid man to war. You leave them back to tend the garden. Okay. Gideon, right? Gideon's like, I got to go to war. And he's got 10,000 men of Israel who come to him, those are great numbers. So you have Gen Pop over here who's like, yeah, I'm gonna hang back, homie. I'm gonna go trim the vines in the vineyard. Okay. You still got 10,000 men mustered. And it's like, that's too many. The father tells him that's too many. Cool. How do we separate? Well, of the 10,000, bring them down to the waters and watch them drink. 300 of them kept their eyes up, looking around, and brought the water to their face.
Those are the ones.
9,700, 97% put their face down to the water.
Yeah.
So 3% ended up being his operators, and they went and ran a night op, right? But the father had sanctioned this. They were operating in his will. And so there should be an expectation as a man that we are going to do dangerous things, that dangerous things will be required of us as men of Elohim, as sons of God. We are going to be required to do dangerous things. We need to have the requisite training to be good at dangerous things when we're called upon to do them. But we also need to do the dangerous things that the Father requires of us to do. On the flip side, if you read throughout the first 5 books of the Bible, in Deuteronomy, at one point, the children of Israel were supposed to go fight this place called Ai.
That's interesting.
It's very interesting. The children of Israel are supposed to fight Ai. Yeah, and I'm a biblical literalist, so and
I think maybe there's context there.
I think there's layers upon layers upon layers in this book, and they won't go. And so the father's like, all right, well, they'll defeat you on the battlefield. And they're like, oh, no, we're going to go now. The father's like, no, I already told you. We tried this. I told you to go and you didn't. And I believe it's Joshua's like, don't go up there and fight them. He's not with you. Okay, he's not with you now. Well, they go anyway. And so delayed obedience is disobedience. They go anyway, and they get absolutely smoked against the same enemy. Had they gone the first time when the father told them to, when they were operating in his will, he would have delivered victory into their hands. And so there's a lot to being capable of violence and knowing how to do dangerous things safely, however you define those things, and then operating in the Father's will in the moment when he says to go, so that he can and will deliver victory into your hands. Not, I'll go when I feel like it, right? Because if you go do the thing that he told you to do when you feel like it, he's not with you on this anymore. Like, you might want to check back into dad first to make sure you don't become a statistic.
That's so good. So many people want to predefine what their emergency situation is going to look like. Like, well, no. See, I need to do this, and it's got to be like, it's because like this is going to happen, and like I shouldn't be tack loading because of this and this, and you're going to have to do all this stuff. And my response is like, hey, you're a human. You don't. There's like one force in the universe that gets to control all the variables that go into your little situation.
Yep.
You're not it.
Yep.
Right. And so when you go at the right time, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. You talk about the 300 there, and the other way I've said it's the whole 9s and 1s,
Yep.
right? But then, and another thing, to bring it back to the training a couple nights ago, what does the support staff look like for those people?
Yep.
What are the logistics behind that?
Yep.
Right? And even then, when we do everything that we can, we are not the authors of the situation.
Yep.
There's just one.
Yep.
So like when the time's right, the time's right. And if you chose to be complacent beforehand and you are not ready when the time is right, you will do the best you can with what you've got,
Yep.
where you're at.
Yep.
And it may not be enough.
One of the things that I think people get wrapped around the axles on is trying to control variables that aren't their variables, right? I want to control all of the variables that I can control on my end. But what are they? Well, I can, to a greater or lesser extent, control how much sleep I get, right? That's big. A lot of
Which we haven't been able to control that very well this
No.
week.
In the last 96 hours, I've gotten just under 14 hours of sleep, and 10 and a half of them were last night.
Or today.
Yeah, we're into today now. We're, by the way, for those who are listening and watching, I won't speak for you. I'm a little sleep deprived, which is a whole nother thing. We'll jump into that in a minute because it affects everything, physical, cognitive performance, decision making, all of that. But I can control that variable. I can control what I eat. I can control what I do for physical training. I can control the amount of time that I spend with my family, that I spend with my homies. I can control to a great extent the amount of revenue that I bring in. I control a lot of these things. I control what I put in my rucksack and what I don't. I control whether or not I did even a little bit of pre-operational intelligence. What is the weather going to be like? Do I need an MSS sleep system that's the size of a VW Bug, or do I need a Whoopee and maybe a sleep pad?
Is it going to be hot and am I going to be hiking over a mountain and I need more than 1 liter of water?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. And part of that was in the loadout that was the packing list that was supplied to students, right? Matt Bayer, what's up, Matt?
Hi, Matt.
He was talking about in 12 hours, if I'm remembering correctly, he drank 6 liters of water and could have used more in 12 hours. And
Legit.
Yeah, legit. I've had 12 liters of water from noon on Sunday to noon on Monday, and we were training all through that. I had 12 liters of water, and I still could have used more.
Were electrolytes or electrolyte replacements on the packing list?
I believe they were.
Right.
Bob handled that, but I believe they were.
Fair enough, because that's another consideration.
Yeah.
When you're putting 6, 8, 10, 12 liters of water through your body, and you need those fun little essential salts so that the neurons fire, and like what happens up here makes it down here.
Yep.
That's a great thing to have with you.
Yeah. Oh, and that's another thing too, right? Like everybody, we're on the preparedness and tactical preparedness, right? It's like, dude, oral rehydration salts will save your ass.
Sleep is tactical preparedness.
100%, right? And so the variables that I can control, I want to control. The variables that I can't control the weather. I might be able to choose the time at which I have to engage with the weather, right? And if I can choose times, I want to, because that gives me an element of control. Yep. I probably can't control the route that we're going to have to take. I can't control at all what the enemy's going to do. This whole scenario that we put these students into, I brought this up during the class. We could have avoided all of this if you guys had one thing prepped back at your house, and you didn't. You know why? Because it's not tactical. It's not sexy. And you didn't have this one thing. And because you didn't have this one thing, we're out here with 20 people, and we simulated casualties amongst their crew as well, right? So the fact of the matter is, you would have all been dead because you're operating on somebody else's territory against an unknown opposition.
On someone else's timeline.
On somebody else's timeline, their terrain. They have area familiarity. You don't. and half a dozen guys ate your lunch, right? But well, when the world ends, I'm gonna throw my rucksack on and I'm just gonna go patrolling through here, and I'll handle it. And arguably near peer threat, preppers against preppers. But there's a stratification in there. There's a spectrum, and because people they haven't done the pre-operational intelligence, they don't even have a comprehension of what the threat or the conditions are going to be. That's where you end up with a 78-pound rucksack for a 12-hour operation, because I literally don't know what I'm going to need, and I don't know how to know what I'm going to need.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that's not sexy to people.
Yeah.
They'd rather throw all the shit in the bag and carry it around than, like, we say it all the time, the more you know, the less you need. But then when it comes time to actually apply that, it's like, how do I know more about this situation so that I don't have to carry the 78-pound rucksack? I'll carry the 18-pound day pack that's mostly water and food, and that's if I need it. That'll get me through this 12-hour window. And then, oh no, 12 hours turned into 72 hours. Cool. Can I find shelter? Can I make a fire if I need it? Do I have a way to communicate? Do I have a way to signal? Do I have a way to self-rescue? Is there a plan in place with my people that I will be at this place by this time? If I'm not, then enact this course of action. Because none of that's sexy. Because nobody, Leviathan Group is not making videos about that. They're like, did you see the new 545 AKAR platform? Who cares? Who cares? Can you shoot it? No. Do you have the ammo to support it? No. Do you know anything about that platform that if it goes down, can you be your own armorer to fix it? No. Does it have interoperability with all your homies? No. Do you need
People
it?
telling you to buy it literally have the name Leviathan?
Yeah.
Indicators.
Yeah. There's probably a line in here when it comes to slander. I won't walk over it, but I will tell you this. I have been approached by them on several occasions. Barry, they literally call it tribe marketing. Barry, you got to join the tribe. Hey, homie, I already have a tribe.
Correct.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the last time I saw them, we were at an event that was put on by an optics manufacturer. They're having a giant range day. They were out there. And no, that was the second last time I saw them, because I also saw them at SHOT Show. They came over and they're like, hey, man, we love the Bear Independent channel. We love what you're about. We'd love to have you in the tribe. And I was like, hey, man, stop talking to me. The answer is no. And they were like, why? And I said, because I've read my Bible. I've read the book of Jeremiah. The Leviathan is the enemy of the Hebrew. I'm a Hebrew. I'm not Jewish. I'm so Christian the Christians don't like me, man. If you believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, congratulations, you're a Hebrew. You're grafted into Israel. Ephesians chapter 2 is your proof text for that. Romans chapter 11 is your proof text for that. And you want to be Israel because at the end of an age, Revelation 19, everybody who's not gets destroyed by Messiah. Different sidebar conversation, different rabbit hole. But the Leviathan is the enemy of the Hebrew. And I was like, so you're literally called Leviathan. You're a multi-headed monster. I don't want to be working with my enemy. And they're like, that's really interesting because we'll call this a hypothetical conversation because they'll probably deny that they have it. In this hypothetical conversation, they're like, that's really interesting because the owner, he's a hardcore Christian. Like, he reads his Bible. I was like, tell him to read harder. The answer is no.
Go back further.
Yeah. Read past that thin page. Yeah. Before Matthew 1.
Go to the older part.
Yeah. And then we were at SHOT Show, and I guess in hindsight, I feel bad about this because one of the guys that's, or at least at the time, was part of their crew, employed by Leviathan, was also part of the Bear Nation. Mm-hmm. And he came up to me at SHOT Show, and he's like, Bear, it's so good to see you, man, blah, blah, blah. I was like, what's up, bro? And you're at SHOT Show, so everybody's got their creds on, and I'm like, Leviathan Group. He's like, man, we would love to have you. And I was like, hey, do me a favor. Shut the fuck up. Yeah. He's like, what? I was like, don't ever bring it up again. Yeah. The answer is no. Yeah. Because I don't want people telling me what I have to say. I don't want people telling me when I can say it. I don't need the talking points from corporate. And going back to selling stuff and these platforms, what people, if you just shift your observation just a little bit. Instead of looking at it at face value, pull back 1 degree. Why is it, like the Springfield Hellion, this bullpup, is a great example of this. Why is it that nobody had ever heard of the Springfield Hellion on Monday, and then by Friday, the entire industry is like, you got to get a Springfield Hellion. Everybody's making bullpup content. Literally 40 different videos for the Springfield Hellion, all dropped at the same time. That's done intentionally. That's an advertising campaign through Leviathan or somebody like Leviathan that works with all these different content producers on a timeline that says, this week we are dropping our Springfield Hellion videos. So now you can reverse plan back. We need to have the content made. It needs to be posted. It needs to be reviewed, do final edits, and then set your launch date for this content during this week to create this buzz so that when Springfield has the Leviathan, or when Springfield has the Hellion available for sale, click to buy now. It's in the hands of all these online retailers, Palmetto State Armory and everybody else. Once it's there and ready to buy, boom, we hit send, and 40 plus videos all drop at the same time to create the buzz in order to get people to buy Hellions. Not because it's a good rifle, not because you need one, not because it does anything an AR-15 doesn't do or weighs less than an AR-15 or has better ballistics or anything, but because there was a concerted marketing campaign to push that product. And people miss that all the time. They don't get it. They wouldn't do that. Of course they would do it. YouTube is an advertising platform masquerading as a content platform. That's what it is.
/ search engine.
And so I don't want to be a part of that because I've shot the Springfield Hellion. It's heavy as shit. It doesn't do anything that an AR-15 doesn't do. I shot it at a range day where Springfield was there like, shoot the new Hellion. It's heavy. The ergos suck. The trigger's horrendous. It's bad. Maybe they have a Gen 2. I don't know. I shot it when it first came out. But the trigger pull had to be somewhere around 16 pounds. I mean, it was rough.
What problems does it solve? This is my question. Hey, cool, new rifle. What problems does it solve?
Yeah.
Like, does it have all the rifle things? So it's got the barrel and the trigger and the place to put the optic. What's it doing that, like, what problems does it solve? Did people magically get different hands and you need to make this new hand grip so that, like, more people it was accessible to? If we're not solving any problems, what are we doing?
Well, it's a bullpup, so it's more compact.
We already had bullpups.
Okay.
Military grade bullpups.
Yeah.
Not made in the Czech Republic either.
Steyr AUG. Yeah. Or the FAMAS. I mean.
Or the Tavor.
Yeah, or the Tavor. Yeah. Yep. So, and then people will be like, well, it's a bullpup. It's more compact. Why do I need a bullpup? Well, for vehicle ops. You run vehicle ops? Show me your vehicle ops. That would imply you have vehicles, you have homies, you have training, you know how to use all the vehicles.
Critical
Yeah,
training.
you have the training on all this stuff. And then you have a mission set that requires you to do vehicle ops. And then people will say, well, you know, I drive to and fro. I'm drive around in vehicles. Okay, cool, me too. Where are you driving that you have to run vehicle ops? You don't have a I need a bullpup problem. You have an I live in the wrong place and do dumb shit problem.
Yep.
That's the problem that you have.
Correct. And if you're in a mindset where you are actively looking to get into gunfights, if you haven't already been told before, which you probably have, let me be the first to say, you're gonna get killed.
Yep.
The world's best knife masters don't want to get into a knife fight with a rank amateur.
Yep.
Because in a knife fight, everybody gets cut.
Exactly.
And so, like, the Leviathan Group and people like the marketing agencies, the big difference is they're available to anybody. For example, the Springfield Hellion. Springfield is prepared to drop $25 million or whatever the cost of an advertising campaign is. And all of a sudden, this shows up everywhere.
Right.
By contrast, there is no amount of money that could have been exchanged that would get you and I sitting in the same room.
100%.
I couldn't have bought that from you. You can't buy it from me. And there's a difference there. There's layers there.
Yep.
There's a lot more genuineness.
Exactly. It's authentic.
I paid my way to come down here.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And I'm not trying to flex. I did the same thing when John called me up. He's like, hey, we're doing this SRF thing. Could you come down and talk to people about nuclear war and like how to survive nuclear war? And I was like, just warning you, I'm going to tell them that they can't. Like, all the books you've been buying are wrong.
Yeah.
You don't. So, there's more to it. But like, basically, I'm going to come and like maybe pop some bubbles. Are you okay with this? Yes. And I got in a vehicle and drove 4,500 kilometers to give a 45-minute talk.
Yep.
And meet cool people. And we got to hang out.
Yep.
And I got to go see my friends who I respect very much. And just do things with people.
Yep.
But a lot of these genuine interactions and sort of the experience that comes out of them can't be purchased.
100%.
You go to a range day and it's like, well, this is supposed to be the best of the best. I think you and I both know the caliber of individuals when they try to do the things that they are peddling.
Uh-huh.
And you're like, listen, I've got some 12-year-olds who do this better than you.
I'll give you one anecdote, from one industry range day, of which we've been to many. Dudley was there with me, which is typical. Dudley does media for us, obviously. He's also a very capable individual. 26 professional heavyweight fights. Never let him kick you. He will kill you with a leg kick. And we train together often, and he's my brother, and I love him. And then he started getting a little pseudo-famous on the internet, too, which is he used to run interference for me.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, my gosh, it's Bear from the internet. And now they're like,
oh my gosh, it's Dudley from
like,
the
oh, my
internet.
gosh, it's Dudley from the internet. And so it's like, now we need to, he needs a PSD, too.
Yeah, you need a third row.
Yeah, I just go walk around in a plexiglass bubble.
Yeah.
No, I love meeting the Bear Nation. But so we're at this range day, and it's when the FK Burno had just come out, 7.5 Burno, right? This new super duper bottlenecked round pistol, blah blah blah, whatever. What does it do that a Glock doesn't do? Okay. And so we're at this range day, and they've got Burnos laid out, and they've got a bunch of loaded magazines. And this guy, I won't say who, but everybody would know, comes walking up to the table, and there is a pop-up target, silhouette target, 10 inches wide, 24 inches tall, on a spring, popped up 10 yards away. He loads a magazine, 10 yards. Okay, you should be able to point shoot 10 yards, no questions asked. He puts 2.5 magazines at the target at 10 yards before the steel starts pinging. Drops the magazine, empties the chamber, clears the gun, sets it back down, picks up a loaded magazine, looks at his media guy, and then says, all right, let's start filming. Starts filming. Hey, guys, it's blah, blah, blah. I'm here with the new FK 7.5 Burno. First shots. Okay, let's check this thing out. All right, ping, 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 ping. Oh, yeah, it's a sweet pistol, man. I highly recommend this. You guys should check it out, fkburno.com or whatever. And I'm like, bro, major ugh. Are you shitting me? And so he clears the gun, sets it down. You know who walks up next? Jerry Michalek.
My goodness.
Jerry Michalek is
who saw the entire thing?
Jerry Michalek.
Who's probably seen this so many times.
He is.
It's a good family.
He's He's an amazing human being.
Yeah.
His daughter Lena is an amazing, and his
Shout
wife and his other daughter. We met them at SHOT Show. We've met them at other industry events. They're
so genuine,
awesome people, and you know what? They can do it. And so Jerry walks up, and he's like, okay, and his camera guy's just rolling. He's like, hey, what's up, guys? Jerry Mitchell, get some. Okay, this is what is this? This is FK 7.5. Okay. And he's got his readers on, his reading glasses, right? And he's like, hey, how far is that target out there? They're like, Jerry, well, that's at 200. He's like, okay. And he's just, good grip, but he's not super tense. He's not crushing the gun, nothing, just good grip. And he goes, poof, ting, poof, ting, poof, ting. And he goes, yeah, that's all right. And then that 10-yard target, he goes, brat. Slide locks back. It goes, yeah, that's an all right gun. All right, yeah, get some, guys. Sets it down, walks away. That was legitimately his first shots. And
was that other dude standing there?
Yes.
I'm so glad to hear
Yes, he was. And that's just one interaction inside of 5 minutes at one industry event.
Yeah.
And the industry, by and large, is so full of shit And what people don't realize is you only see what they point the camera at when they point the camera at it. You don't see all this other stuff in the background. And the reason you don't see that is because of ego, because they want you to think that they are the subject matter experts, because the currency is attention, which is really your time. And they don't want to see you. They don't want you to see them failing.
They think that they can't possibly, or you will turn away.
Yeah.
But that's not the truth.
No, I want you to see me making the mistakes that I make, because I don't want you to make the same mistakes.
I sit here and tell you that I'm not the pinnacle. I'm the guy who made all these mistakes, so
Yep.
you don't have to.
Exactly.
For me to now portray somebody who never makes any mistakes again would be disingenuous to
Yep.
the core.
That's the real value is in that.
So
Right.
if you can film something, film how I screw it up, and in the moment, what do I do?
Yep.
Right? Like I told your students on the medical side, I said, Ed's #1 rule of trauma medicine. And they're like, what? Don't panic. And it sort of is.
Yep.
Generally speaking, when something's going wrong, the #1 rule is don't panic. Because if you first don't panic, then you can probably engage the thinking part of your brain. You know, take a breath, get some
Exactly.
air in, and then like work through the problem. And if you panic, you just can't. And so for people to be able to see somebody on the internet
Yep.
who doesn't care if they watch them or not. I mean, I don't. You're big enough, it doesn't matter whether, even if you did, like, it wouldn't matter.
I
you'll be
block as
watching
many
anyways.
people in a day as I get new subscribers. I don't care.
I block the ones, the scantily clad woman with no fucking, and it's like, whatever, all this hieroglyphics worth of name has liked your post. I'm like, block.
Yep.
I feel good. But like if people were to go like Dudley over here, I watched the video that he put on rolling with a black belt in Las Vegas, right?
Yep.
It was in Las Vegas. There was some amazing videography there, and there were two really well put together
Yep.
fighters and practitioners.
Yep.
Not being perfect.
Yep.
Everybody was like, okay, we're figuring this out, right?
Yep.
Life isn't a choreographed dance.
Well,
movies are.
Dude,
Life isn't.
And to that point, so we're in Vegas at SHOT Show, and Dudley's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go train with Sergio," and I'm like, "Sergio, what's a Sergio? What are we talking about?" He's like, "Sergio Penha," and he's like, "I'm like, okay, that name rings a bell," and so Dudley goes in, and it was cool for me because it's kind of like when you see somebody doing that thing they're awesome at, and you're like, oh, that's who you really are.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, I've let Dudley punch me in the face. He's kicked me,
He's so patient rolling around. He's just giant. He's just like, okay, now we're just going to.
Yeah. And you're excellent at what you do, bro.
This is
You
true.
really are. You're
This
excellent.
is true.
And you're good at teaching too.
Yeah.
And so I know that side of Dudley, right? And then we get to, we're sitting on the mats, and I think it was me, Bob, and Dud. And we're sitting on, Dudley's on the mat, and we're sitting off over here to the side. And Dudley rolls with this other guy for, I don't know, a half an hour or so, and they're just physically exhausted at the end of it, and the whole nine. And Sergio comes in, and talk about an instructor. But, he starts pointing out, he wasn't patting them on the back, oh, you guys are the best, A for effort. No, he's pointing out all of the mistakes that they made and then making them go back and do it over and over and over again. And then he flexes into teaching the other guy, using Dudley as his rag doll.
Yep.
And it was amazing because if it's just a factor of size and strength, Dudley would win. But it's technique and experience. And Sergio's, probably 70 years old? About 70 years old. And Dudley's not. Bigger,
Yep.
stronger, younger.
Yep.
Like, you're a strong dude, bro. You are a strong dude.
Yep. A physical presence that you can feel.
Yeah. Like, if you're walking into the room and you have any situational awareness.
I'm not just saying that because he's sitting right there.
I tell
it's true.
people all the time.
I know you do. Yeah.
Don't fight him.
Yeah.
He'll win.
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed.
And then there's Dudley getting ragdolled on the mats by this 70-year-old man who's using 5% strength 95% technique. And that was the point he was making to the other student.
exactly.
He's like, you're never going to be stronger than Dudley is.
Yeah.
If you're going to fight him with strength, you'll lose 10 out of 10 times. So what you want to do is this. And next thing you know, Dudley spun over on the mat laying there. And it was a beautiful thing for me to see, A, because I learned more about my brother. And like, oh, that's a huge part of who he really is. And B, dude, technique is huge.
Well, you saw this giant being immensely respectful
Yep.
of this person with knowledge and experience, freely giving it.
Yep.
You guys hadn't met each other before that, right?
Yeah, like 10 years prior.
Okay, copy that. I didn't know that. It looked to me on film as if maybe you hadn't, and he certainly looked at you and recognized this is a guy that I can do this demonstration on and isn't going to just engage all the muscles and make it hard on me.
Yeah.
Because like that's no, I'm a jiu-jitsu white belt. Me and my boys go and we love it and we do BJJ, 4 times a week collectively.
Yep.
And I will be a white belt for a very long time, which is great. I'm not planning to win any titles or competitions. You can tell really quickly, like amateurs and real professionals sort themselves out. On the amateur side, power, size, and strength does matter. Because 2 amateurs, skills equal, even with a disparity of skills, but still on the sort of amateur side, the larger, more physical individual, usually man, will have advantages.
Mm-hmm.
But at that top level, at that really high level that you want to get, so those nuggets from, it really starts to fall off.
Yeah.
Like, size doesn't really matter.
Well, at a professional level, at a master level, now your size and strength is used against you, right?
For sure.
Now it's a known factor, right? Look at David and Goliath, right? Like Goliath, but by a standard military context, the Philistines had overmatch, both in the number of people they brought and the size of people that they brought. So much that King Shaul, Saul, the first king of Israel, was like, dude, we are fucked. Like, what? There is no hope here. And it's interesting. Goliath taunted David for 40 days. And that 40 comes up in the Bible over and over. These are always transformative periods. It rained in Noah's Ark 40 days. The Israelites wandered in the wilderness for 40 days before they rejected the promised land, then 40 years. Messiah was in the wilderness prior to his ministry starting for 40 days. Goliath taunted David for 40 days. King Shaul tries to give David his armor and his sword, and David's like, I'm good. They're too big for me, because David was a little dude. David walks up, was like, battle plan, rock between the eyes, knock him on the ground. And everybody, because they were indoctrinated in Sunday school, right? Yeah, David killed Goliath with a rock. No, he didn't. He knocked him down with a rock. And that rock, they've done studies on this, that rock had about the equivalent foot-pounds of a 45 ACP, right between the eyes. And that was enough to knock the giant down. What killed the giant was David went over and picked up Goliath's sword and cut his own head off with it. And then he held the head of the Philistine champion up. Now, giant head, this dude had a big head, right? So just think about picking up, 35-pound kettlebell or 40-pound kettlebell and just holding it up like this to everybody else who was assembled there. And then the Philistines were like, nope, we don't want any. We're going home. And so technique won the day there. Discipline won the day. Having a plan, exactly. Planning won the day, not just brute force. If it was a game of brute force, the Philistines would have taken out the Israelites. Now, and that also ties back to that wasn't the Creator's plan, because from David's loins, you end up at Messiah, right? And so had David not prevailed, and in that moment, used technique and had a plan, we wouldn't get to, without Messiah, we don't have the lineage of, or without David, we don't have the lineage of Messiah. And so it's not just brute force. And the professionals are obvious. Sergio Penha is an obvious professional. And another thing that I didn't touch on there wasn't an ego to be found in that room.
Yeah.
Not one.
You could see it on the video.
Yeah.
like, and that's the most striking thing for anyone who has eyes to, like, take the time to look. Like,
Yep.
hey, look, there's a marked absence of ego here.
Yeah. And because there was no ego there, real learning was taking
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have another question for you. How did you get into CBurn, and what is that?
From the industrial side. So I said earlier, I'm non-military, and so people think NBC, CBRN, that's a military sort of thing, and they own that. And on a professional sense, there's definitely a lot of that kind of training. Most people, especially Americans who've gone through even sort of basic training, have been exposed to that. In law enforcement, there's sort of a sliver of it because there's CNCS agents that they got to deal with. They get they get tear gassed while they're going through depot for us or whatever the agency training is down here.
Right.
As I mentioned, I'm about every kind of welding inspector that there is.
Right.
Which I didn't just wake up and be like, I'm going to be all the different kinds of inspector.
Do you weld?
No.
Okay.
I was a goldsmith. The family business is making hand-built, custom-designed jewelry, and so
I have somebody. I need to pass you some information after this.
Copy
but
that.
Continue.
I'm not a great goldsmith anymore. It's been a long time.
Right.
But when I was 4, my father started teaching me. When I was 7, I made my first piece, and he sold my first piece.
Yep.
And that continued on into my 20s. And
Cool.
The photography, the quality of photography that I do now, I learned how to do on first-generation digital cameras, trying to use CMOS sensors to get scintillation and life and fire out of gemstones, which is incredibly difficult to do with a digital camera.
Right.
We figured it out in the early 2000s. So that ties in. And then using fire and torches and hammers and rolling mills to sort of mold metal was the crossover into when I went into industrial inspection.
Gotcha.
The sort of the metallurgy aspect of it gave me that Venn diagram of, I understand a little bit of how heat transmits through metal.
Right.
And what that does.
Right.
And turns out that, all I had to do was ask, like, hey, are the laws of thermodynamics really different for different metals? No. different rates, time at temperature does different things, but like it works in everything. Oh, okay, cool. So all the stuff that I learned by burning my fingers over and over again, where there's no sensation in the tips, I can translate this. Yes,
Right.
you can. Cool. I've got a jumping off point.
That's awesome. There's
Yeah.
a lesson just in that for people who are listening. But please continue.
Agreed. So I started off.
Pause for a moment.
Copy that.
Sorry about that. We had a little minor emergency, which totally proves the point that we were discussing earlier. Like, you need people. It's handled. It's being handled.
And also, it's only an emergency if you don't know what to do,
Ooh, that's a good word.
right? Like, your emergency with training and resources and planning gets lowered. It's not an emergency anymore. Now it's just a problem that has to be solved.
That's a good word. So, NBC is nuclear, biological, chemical, and then CBurn is chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and environmental. Is that correct?
If you add the E to it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so from the welding side, you were telling us you were a goldsmith, which is cool. And then you got into welding, inspection, all of that. And then that led you to CBurn?
So my first foray into the inspection side was as an industrial radiographer.
Okay.
So the first thing I was doing after taking a series of classes on atomic structure, nuclear physics, and that was grabbing a 70-pound radioisotope canister and running up and down the pipeline with it attached to my leg, and then cranking out sources so that we could take X-rays of welds. So right off the get-go, I was concerned about the radiological piece, and I proceeded to spend sort of the next 20 years heavily focused in that. So we'll just focus on that for now. There's more to do with industrial ticks and TIMs that comes later. And then earlier on, from the goldsmithing side, it was a family business.
Yep.
And one of the aspects to that, as I got older, was I was the one moving money and gemstones and that around. And some of our dealers, not unsurprisingly, were from Israel. And they were Jewish diamond dealers, as you might expect. And one time we got to talk, and obviously they were, they all been in the IDF.
Right.
And so we got to talking about physical security, because they brought up, hey, listen, like when we move this stuff around, we're always coming in, they were always showing up in different vehicles and always, arriving to the shop from different routes. And I was like, what's going on? Like, do you just not like the car from last time? Like, no. Like you are in a physical location that doesn't move. We come to you at a semi-regular set of times. There are absolutely people who can and will be monitoring us, tracking us. And when we go inside, we'll roll under our vehicle and cut the brakes so that there can be an accident, and then they can just take what we have.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Tell me more about this. So from there, I've always enjoyed finding experts and then paying them to teach me. That's right from early stage that I can remember. And so they connected me with somebody who specialized in personal protection. And I wasn't protecting people, but assets, right? And myself. And so I started taking that training. And then from the security side, that just sort of expounded over time. And I started, okay, so how do I move about in a way that A, nobody decides that I'm a target.
Right.
And B, if they do, there's a few interventions that I can put in place so that, going from being a potential target doesn't turn me into a victim. And that, for the entire time that I worked for my father doing that, I just sort of kept that and kept growing that skill set on the side. And then we got into industrial radiography in the early 2000s, after 9/11.
Yep.
And as I started carrying industrial radioisotopes all over the country, often by myself, in very evidently marked vehicles, because that was a requirement,
Yep.
I started putting those same security skills into practice, and then just bringing them into that sort of mindset. And so I was both learning how to be a professional tradesman and do really good work on that end, and also, whenever possible, increasing my skills in knowing about the threat of radiation, the potential threat of terrorism, and because the type I was using, the reason it's the iridium group is the radioisotope that we use on the pipeline is iridium-192.
Okay.
And so that's where that sort of stems from.
Cool.
Okay? It's that element, and the 192 is the unstable isotope of iridium, which is completely man-made. We get it by putting stable pieces of iridium in the neutron activation chamber of a nuclear reactor and bombarding it with neutrons so that it picks up extra neutrons, it becomes unstable, and starts, emitting X-rays and gamma rays. Mostly gamma rays, but I digress. And so we're doing that, and I'm like, okay, cool. So not only is this a physical security concern for me, for the radiation safety aspect, and I learned everything that I could about that, and then proceeded to learn it from different people and proceeded to refine and distill a way that I would approach it that worked for me. But also, it's a potential threat vector because terrorists, are now a thing, yo.
Yep.
And if they can get one of these, or two or four of them, crack them open, crush the radioactive material, put it in a canister, and drop it in the middle of a stadium, there's probably some element of them that would like to.
Yep.
And of course, as we know, they definitely would have liked to.
Yep.
And dirty bombs had already been conceived and were already sort of employed throughout history. So I started taking additional training and seeking out people who could show me ways to mitigate that threat. And that led me to do a little bit of consulting with some agencies to sort of take what I'd learned and help them set those practices up, which eventually turned into, radiation protection training courses that I've developed and delivered over the years. So from the radiation side, that's where I became sort of a person who was able to talk at a really, not super technical, not physicist level, but at a human to human, person to person level about radiation safety, the effects of nuclear war, nuclear disasters, and how to mitigate them and what to do about them.
That's cool. I love people who figure it out. There's a common thread. Having talked with Dr. Trevor, like he figured it out.
Sure.
He figured it out for himself first, so he could figure it out for other people. Talked with Bob, right? Like Bob's a civilian too. He figured out the tactical side because of the line of work that he was in at the time. Talking with Jody, who was on last, is like, he was a drug addict who was going nowhere, and he had a guy take him under his wing, and he figured it out. And then that guy pushed him out a year later and was like, go figure it out. And he figured it out, right? And that's an overarching theme here, and it's a big part of my life.
Yep.
However, I think nuclear warfare and nuclear threat is probably not one of those things that most people are going to figure out. So for the viewers, for the audience, what are they doing that they're doing wrong, and what are they not doing that they should be doing to mitigate that risk?
Atomic weapons are a God-level threat. You have no control over how it goes down. And it's very human to think that, hey, we can control the controllables, and we can make uncontrollables controllable so that we can then control those controllables. Negative. So the simple, sad fact of the matter is, if nuclear warfare becomes a thing, everyone will be devastated.
Yep.
If you're in the blast radius, you won't even know about it. And if you're just outside the blast radius, it won't last that long.
Yep.
And if you're everybody else on the planet is going to get very inhospitable.
Yep. Cooling.
It's so easy to say, and it's so common to pontificate on, to like, oh, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. The problem with that is it's never happened.
Right.
We don't know. We're guessing. Now, obviously, smart people can guess and, make some pretty good guesses, and we've done lots of tests, but we don't know for sure.
It's all theory.
And so I think once you get to something which you've classified as an uncontrollable, then the last thing you should try to do is hopelessly pour in energy in attempts to steer the ship.
That's a good word.
And you can make some changes for yourself. You can change your location. So if you live near somewhere where a nuclear attack might be likely, you may consider moving from that place.
That's how I've problem solved this. Is I don't want to be anywhere near a juicy target. That's the best I was capable of coming up with, given my understanding of the situation and what I could do about it. I agree with you. If you're in the blast radius, you have a very short-term problem. It's going to be over before it started. If you're outside of the blast radius, but you're still in the fallout area, that could be pretty bad. And proximity is a big thing, right? Proximity and prevailing winds. And so looking at that, it's like, I want to live in a really boring place. And the father chose Eastern Oklahoma for us. But I have no control over what the Russians or the Chinese or the Iranians or the United States does, or the Israelis or anybody else. And we could pontificate on representative republics, but the people have abdicated all responsibility to the government at this point. And we lack leverage. The people lack leverage in order to compel our elected representative officials to actually function in our best interest. We don't have leverage. And the government, to their credit, has done a great job of removing leverage. And everybody talks about, we got 3 boxes: the soap box, the ballot box, and the bullet box. Okay. Well, soap box.
Pine box.
And a pine box, which most people don't want to think about. And at this point, you're likely to get a pine box for all 3. If we take the pine box analogy, right? Well, on the soapbox, they'll demonetize you or deplatform you and debank you.
Sure.
They've done that.
Hashtag Canada, bro.
Yeah, they've done that. I mean, we ran into that with the world's largest e-commerce platform deciding that they didn't like what I said on the internet.
Yeah.
And that goes back to team. My team is badass, and they navigated that.
Yep.
There was some fingernail chewing during that whole time, but they navigated that.
Yep.
And so, they will try and put your voice in a pine box, right? The ballot box. They literally have people in pine boxes voting in the United States of America.
Problematic.
And if you get too vocal about that, they'll put you in a pine box. And then when you go to the bullet box or the cartridge box, we just ran this 36 hours ago, actually. The vast majority of people are grossly underqualified to be doing anything that has anything to do with the cartridge box. And so all that being said, right, control the controllables. I can control where I live, and I can audit the threat profile around me and then make decisions around, do I want to mitigate this risk or not? And I think one of the things that diminishes people's quality of life is looking at a very high-level threat like that, nuclear war, that we have no control over. And then, now, if you have a conviction, that's one thing. Mm-hmm. If you have a conviction, do whatever that conviction is. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have a conviction, you're just reading the writing on the wall.
Don't take someone else's conviction as your own.
100%. You are now orchestrating your entire life around some esoteric threat that you have no control over, no understanding of, no idea of the timeline, and everything downstream of that decision is now shit because of this one external potential threat.
Yes.
And then you diminish quality of life.
Yes.
And that's a real balance to try and strike between preparedness and quality of life. And I think a lot of people get it wrong because they're more focused on preparedness than they are quality of life. And therefore they both suffer, because my whole thing is like, preparedness is perpetuating normalcy for the people that you love.
I love that.
Right? That's my goal.
It's not buying stuff off Walmart.
It's not buying stuff.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the rifle. The rifle doesn't matter unless you know how to use it. Mm. The body armor or chest rig doesn't matter unless you know how to use the rifle, and on and on and on and on and on, right? Which ultimately leads to the big questions of like, well, why do I have a rifle? That's the correct question to ask for the preservation of life. Okay, well, in this scenario or in this situation, where's the line for preservation of life? Like, well, you start asking those questions, I'm not going to start any shit, but I'll end it, right? And so, I don't know. I fell into a rabbit hole there.
For the surviving nuclear war piece.
Yeah.
What I like to tell people in the civilian realm, and this isn't great for sales of gas masks, and for all of you who love your gas mask, I also own gas masks. There's a time and place.
Yep.
The thing is, the most realistic thing that you can do to prepare for the advent of after a nuclear strike and there's potential nuclear fallout coming down, the thing that you can do to prepare now, and to get to your point, preparedness is not the action of purchasing.
Yep.
Preparedness is the action of pre-running what you think is going to happen. That's preparing. Mm-hmm. Maybe preparedness is the action of purchasing, but like actually preparing for a scenario is like planning for it, testing out your strategies, seeing if they work. That's what preparing is, and there's value in that.
Yep.
If you were to imagine your house, and you're okay, so my threat is nuclear, radioactive fallout. And it doesn't have to be from radioactive weapons. There are enough radioactive emergencies or potential emergencies from radioactive waste, train derailments carrying it, heavy trucks hauling it, that you could actually find that as a legitimate threat for you. But gas mask won't fix it. Imagine this. Wrap your house in saran wrap. Just as an analogy. Just the whole thing. Whoop, whoop, whoop. All plastic covered. Cool. Cut a hole in one window in one bedroom. and put whatever highest level of furnace filter there so that there can be some air exchange. That bedroom is now a dirty bedroom. You can't actually go in it. It's just supposed to provide a little bit of air in and out. The power is going to be out, so you might as well just go and turn off your breaker there, okay? So now you've got no power. You and your family stay in the house 3 or 4 days. Oh, by the way, no running water anymore either. So you're going to have to find a way to poop. Everybody stinks. There's no more showering, okay? You're eating and drinking whatever you can find in your house, but you can't burn fuel because you have no exhaust for your house functionally. If it's cold, you're all huddled up in a central location, probably your living room. You've maybe got a tent in your living room. Your sleeping bags are in there. This is how you're existing. And you're existing that way most likely until somebody's psychological wellness
Yep.
cracks.
Yep.
And then they, in a understandable state of mental distress, go, I just can't take it anymore. I have to go outside.
Cracks the seal.
And they don't even think about there's going to be follow-on effects and you're going to kill the rest of your family.
Right.
And, gonna kill the rest of your family is one of those really firm statements that I can't back up with any proof because, again, it's never happened. But, that's the threat. Somebody that you love and that you've brought in there with you is going to crack and go outside and be dead, and you're all going to be compromised to go along with it. And when you put in I'm going to have a gas mask and I'm going to have one of those suits and, I'm going to have $1,000, $1,200 worth of this equipment so that I can go outside and do stuff. We can scavenge or we can do whatever. I want you to consider that the professionals who do CBRN or hazmat cleanup, they put all that equipment on, use it once, and throw it out.
Yep.
Because to decontaminate that, simple water will work, but it takes a swimming pool worth of water. And then what are you going to do with that contaminated pond that you just made just outside your front door?
Yep.
So there's follow-on levels and layers that people are not going to do. Mm-hmm. And 1 out of every 1,000 people is 100% going to do this. They're going to set their life up for that. And to that person, I applaud them. They've made their choice of their lifestyle. And so some people will, but by and large, most people won't.
Question for you, because I get this question a lot. Well, frequently, maybe not a lot. Do you think there's any rational applicability for subsurface bunkers?
Rational applicability.
For a normal human being, not for Jeff Bezos or, Klaus Schwab, just...
what's the context?
You're okay. Jim and Sally, normal person, average jobs, 2.5 kids. They're worried that the world's going to end. They got a little bit of money set back. Should they dig a hole, put a bunker in it?
Unless they, 2 weekends a month, go put all their family in and exist in it, somebody's going to try to break out of that bunker. Mental distress is going to cause people to do things that are unpredictable or predictable, really, if you think about it rationally. But in the moment, we were like, hey, listen, the aliens are here and they only hunt by sound. You have to be quiet. And then your kid's like, I'm hungry. And you're all dead, right? And you're like, didn't you hear me? I said you have to be quiet. Didn't you understand how, life and death this was? No.
Yeah.
Mental distress ruins that. So, and then, they're like, well, scavengers, whatever, will be hidden from them. I love the saying, and I forget where I heard it, where the guy's like, oh, you're in a bunker? I could murder you with a garden hose.
Yep.
We've got thermal everything now, and just about anybody can acquire it if it's really what they want. Mm-hmm. And the exhaust port of a subterranean bunker lights up on thermal, day or night.
Yep. Yeah,
I'm let's say I'm lukewarm on the concept.
For those that want them, and I've consulted with, I used to do a fair amount of consulting. Yeah. I'm just too freaking busy now. Yeah. I decided I'd rather focus on my stuff than somebody else's stuff.
Sure.
And it doesn't mean that they shouldn't focus on their stuff. I just can't help you with your stuff right now. I've got my own stuff to focus on. But for those that want them, I've facilitated the installation of several bunkers. And I get it. They want them. Okay, I'm here to help. Mm-hmm. I will help bring this to fruition for you. I just have a hard time in most cases recommending that anybody gets one, especially thinking. I think a lot of people think like it's a check the box, one and done. I'll put the bunker in the ground. I'll put my food in the bunker. I'll stay inside the bunker for 14 days. After 14 days, problem will be solved. Depends on what the problem is,
Yep.
right? Because if it's
That's the fallacy of the litany of survive the nuclear war books that have been published since the 60s.
well, and okay, so we have an initial strike, right? And so first strike, second strike capabilities, right? A lot of governments have second strike capabilities, just retaliation, right? Or if they take our first strike capability offline, nuclear armed submarines, right? The United States has submarines everywhere in all the great seas that are nuclear capable. And even though, no, we decommissioned those. Sure, we did.
Negative.
Yeah, right. They're in a warehouse in Atlanta right now. You're absolutely correct. They're
That's
gone.
not how that works.
No, it's not how that works.
Right.
Yeah, you don't just eBay one of those either.
Right.
Hey, what do we do with these? So first strike, second strike, decapitation strikes, retaliation strikes, all this crap, right? Okay, so the bombs fall on the first of the month. Does that mean they're done falling? Right? Because PJ talks about this. He's like, yeah, I'd hit you. If it was him, boom, nuke the country.
I know exactly where this is going.
3 days, or 3 weeks later,
yeah.
boom, nuke the country again.
Yeah. Well, just high level EMP.
Yep.
And then another one.
Yep.
I didn't put one satellite up, bro. I put two.
Yep.
Because one, and then you pull all your stuff out, and then you're like, okay, we're rebuilding now. Mm-hmm. Congratulations, you get to rebuild again.
Yeah, all the radios that were in Faraday cages, all the sensitive equipment that came out, right? Oh no, take that offline too. And so, like, what's the threat? Should I have a bunker? And a lot of people are like, well, the people threat. Well, I can get in the bunker and stay in there for 14 days or 30 days, which again psychologically compounds and compounds and compounds. You come out half crazy 30 days later. My understanding of this, my belief in this is the enemy actually becomes more qualified the longer we go in this situation. The people behaving badly get better at behaving badly for a couple of reasons. The ones who aren't good at being bad,
They're dead.
They're dead.
Yes.
They get taken out. And the ones who are good at being bad are learning and increasing their operational area as they're going. And so the threat only becomes more qualified over time, not less qualified. And so if I'm in the first 30 days locked in the bunker, that limits my ability to influence the situation early on, positively, right? To like, I used the phrase one time and it pissed a bunch of people off, but I'm going to use it again. Be a righteous warlord. And people are like, whoa, that's not very Christian of you. Like,
Why not?
have you read Revelation? Because that's literally who Messiah is coming back. He's a righteous warlord. There'll be peace on earth, Ed. You know why there's peace? All the people who are starting trouble are dead.
The dissenters.
Yep. They're all gone, right? And so...
and you make an excellent point because the shitbags will get better and better with nobody putting their heads down.
Yep, exactly.
Right? If there's no reason to duck and cover, they don't have to, and they just get better and better at doing the things that they do.
Yep.
And instead of having to deal with a few of them in your local area, you might have to deal with a gang of them.
Yeah, and bad news doesn't get better with time. Solve the problem, whatever the problem is. If it's interpersonal bullshit or it's something at work or it's, TDA is all over the news right now as of the time of this recording because they've taken over parts of Aurora, Colorado, Tren de Aragua, this gang from Latin America. Okay, deal with that problem when it's little.
Yep.
It's much easier to deal with the problem when it's little than it is to just let it go and go and go and go and go. And then you have this monster that, because we didn't intervene sooner, it's just like blood loss. Deal with it now. It's way better to keep the blood inside the body now. Stop the bleed. Metaphorically, stop the bleed now, because the survivability of the patient, the more blood we keep inside the body, the higher the survivability rate is. But for some reason with problem solving, people don't apply that to everything else because it's hard, Ed. I don't want to have that conversation with this guy. Bill's a jerk. I don't want to talk to him. Well, the longer Bill continues being a jerk to you, the harder it's going to be to talk to him, the worse the situation is going to get.
People don't think that they have the permission to do it. They convince themselves of that. I teach tactical medicine too, for those who don't know. And as you know, tactical medicine at the level that we teach it at is pretty simple.
Yep.
Pretty basic. And the way I like to characterize it is one of the primary things that I'm doing when I'm teaching it is giving people the unlock codes in their heads so they feel like they've got the permission to act.
Yep.
Because if you have that, whatever you're going to do is going to be way better than doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that applies broadly to people.
Yeah.
That's why weakness is such a problem. And weakness of mind, weakness of spirit.
Yep.
You can have people who are physically weak who are very effective and potent members of their community and who do great things. That's a weakness of body or frailness of body isn't necessarily a requirement.
Yep.
But frailness of mind or frailness of spirit is definitely a limiting factor.
100%. And I don't think enough people have really figured out what they stand for and what is their go and their no-go. What will they just simply not tolerate in their life? And not just existentially, but in the moment. What will you come into agreement with? What will you reject? And as my role in Refuge Medical has grown from founder to now CEO, this is my first bailiwick at CEO, bro. Like, I've never done this before. I've been part of teams that have done amazing things, and I've led a lot of teams, but I've never been CEO before. Well, CEO's job, aside from problem solving for the teams of people that you have, is vision and culture. Vision is where we came from, where we are, and where we're going. Because you need a minimum 3 points to triangulate, right?
Sure.
And then culture is, what do we tolerate, what do we embrace, and what do we reject? And a lot of people don't know the answers to those things in their own personal life or for their family or for their faith group or their business. And people have a problem rejecting stuff, saying, no, we're not doing that. And people tend to think, evil, bad stuff, I'm going to reject that. Well, first of all, how do you define what's evil and bad? Right? Where's your moral compass at? I have mine. I read the Bible and I do what it says.
Sure.
But what's even harder is rejecting all the good ideas that are actually distractions from the thing that you're supposed to be doing. And then you get super widespread. You're spread thin, and so you're a mile wide and an inch deep instead of an inch wide and a mile deep in your capability.
I feel that so hard. ADHD.
Bro, I'm the worst of them.
Oh, yeah.
I'm my own good idea fairy.
Yeah.
To the point where...
Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. Oh, this too? Sure. Why not? Yes, you can do it. Hey, did you realize that you just told people you'll do all those things at the same time on the same day? Nope, that escaped me.
Yeah. And I've run up against that on several occasions, even recently. But my team has a phrase that they use often, which is no new businesses. And they mean it.
Yeah.
They'll look right at me.
Yeah.
No new business.
Yeah.
And it's, Alex Hormozy teaches on this. He says, more, then better, then new. And so whatever you're doing that's already working, do more of that and do so much of it that it breaks, that you can't keep up with it. Then make it better. And then do more of that until it breaks. And you just keep doing that more better, more better, more better until it legitimately doesn't work anymore. And then you do something new. And I've really had to onboard that in my life because
me too.
I see so much opportunity.
Yeah.
Even in 2024,
Yes.
I see so many opportunities, whether it's to help somebody or love somebody or bring a product to market or launch a new service. The opportunities abound. But if I half-ass any of these opportunities, then I'm not giving them the credit that they deserve.
And they are not fruitful.
And they're not fruitful, which is demoralizing. And one of the things that really helped me with that is there's a difference between, especially on the spiritual side, there's a difference between this is a good idea and I am called to this.
Yep.
And so just because something is the right thing to do doesn't mean that you are the right person to do it. And then societally, if somebody if I'm doing 10 different things that are all good and righteous and they're the right thing to do, other people, they lack the permission. They feel like they don't have to do it because Bear's got it. Bro, Bear don't got it, right? We have two different ministries, and they're wildly different, but they're both forsaking not the widow and the orphan,
Right.
and helping people, right?
Right.
Grindstone and Caleb House. But all the other things, you know what I don't have? I don't have a puppy rescue. I don't have a drug rehabilitation. I don't have job skills, life skills. We don't do those things. Not because they're not important, but I don't have the bandwidth to do it.
Yep.
And if I was to do it, let's say I opened a drug rehab in this county. This county needs one.
Yep.
But somebody else wouldn't who is called to do it. And then I'm actually not servicing my community by doing that because I'm half-assing it when my lane is go over here, forsake not the widow and the orphan. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. But I got distracted by the good idea, and it's a righteous idea. But now that I'm executing on it, the person who's supposed to be isn't. And I'm actually robbing them of their service to the kingdom and doing a shitty job of serving the kingdom at the same time.
That's an important point right there. I currently hold, 15 senior inspection certifications, which it's a lot. I am not all those people in one day. I can do one at a time.
Right.
And when I used to have, be employed, they'd be like, hey, can you go here and do this, and then go here and do this, and then go here and do this? And by the time I had 3 or 5 concurrent and consecutive inspection projects that I was dealing with, I had to recognize when I started doing a really shitty job.
Yep.
And then go back up the flagpole and say, hey, listen, boss. I didn't like that because I don't like to have bosses, but it was what it was. And it was corporate structure. We didn't play well together. But I made the attempt and said, listen, I can do 3 of these things at the same time and do a 90% job.
Yep.
I'm good enough to do that. At thing number 4, I'm doing like a 71% job.
Yep.
And at thing number 5, I might be doing a 62% job on all of them, not just on the new thing.
Right.
Everything gets dragged down. And so, to broaden that, this applies when we are like, hey, we have entrepreneurial mindsets. We feel like we are called to help people. Every time something pops up like, well, you could just do this and this and this, and you tell somebody that, you're like, maybe I should do that. And it's a shining golden idea right in front of you. Mm-hmm. And the point of the exercise is to be like, does it need to be done? Does it need to be done right now?
Yep.
Does it need to be done by me?
Yep. 100%.
Right? And often the answer to one of those 3 is no. And rarely it's yes to all 3. And in that case, that's alignment, right?
Yep. That's the thing I'm supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. We have a sister who launched a market called Kahila Market, which is a Torah observant marketplace. And it's something that me and my team and my people here in our community have been talking about for years. She did it. And that's wonderful, right? And so, does the world need that? Well, the market will decide if the world needs that. And if the answer is yes, her business will grow, and that will be amazing. And do I and my team, rewinding 3 years ago or whenever, when we first started banding this concept around, my team has the capability to execute on a wide swath of things when it comes to business and specifically e-commerce.
Agreed.
Right? But that's not for us. And had we tried to do that, then that would have suffered, and then Refuge would have suffered as well. And it would be like, all of these things are breaking at the same time. And they're breaking because you lack focus to pour into the thing that you need to pour into. And that's something that I've had to do a lot as far as triage what I actually need to be doing. So much so that, we used to talk about all the time, I got 5 businesses and 2 ministries. I'm down to 4 things now from 7. And
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow. That's monumental.
Yeah.
That's the Alex Hormozy thing. Right? Better and then new. The better is often a distillation of the number of things, like less.
Yeah, exactly.
Less. 'Cause
Exactly.
now I can do the things that I'm doing better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then even with that, right? So Bear Independent Refuge Medical Grindstone Ministries Caleb House, right? Well, if we look at Bear Independent, I can give away all facets of Bear Independent other than talking at the camera.
Agreed.
Once somebody else talks at the camera, it's not Bear Independent anymore,
Agreed.
right?
Yes.
And maybe years from now, we'll have the Bear Network, right? And that's so buy your time back, right? And the Bear Show is on Monday through Friday at this time. But then the remainder of the network is all these other content creators, people that I love and trust. We have a high degree of ideological alignment, and we have the Bear Network. Cool. But for the Bear Show, Bear's got to talk. But Dudley can do the media stuff because he is, right? He can set up the mics and the lights and the posting, and then Monica can make sure that it finds its way into the appropriate platforms at the appropriate times, and that's great. And the Dance Monkeys can receive the intel and distill it down for me and pass it to me, and we do this, right? So even in Bear Independent, I'm not doing all things. I started doing all things, but now I'm just talking. Refuge, I started doing all things. Now vision, culture, problem solving is needed at a strategic level, not tactical. I tell my people all the time, like, that's not a me question. And it's not me being a jerk. It's not a me question because I don't know the answer. That's so tactical. I don't know how to tell you how to fix that. What I want to hear is what you think we should do, and then I'll tell you which one I think makes the most sense. But you do you.
Yep.
And going back to permission, really what they want is permission and approval in the moment to execute on this course of action that they know what they need to do. They just want to know that boss isn't going to kick them in the ass when they do it.
Correct.
Right? And then Grindstone and Caleb House. Grindstone, we have Kyle as director of operations. He makes sure we maintain readiness. He's the one out there building relationships. He's the one making sure that, projecting forward what the budget is going to be and equipment replacement costs and timelines and budgets and all of that. And I sit on the board and I run track hose and chainsaws when we need to. And because I love it, right? I love deploying.
Plus, you're good at it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then Caleb House. I'm rarely in the field.
Right.
And part of that is because I'm me. I get blown at the gas station. People are like, "Are you Bear from the internet?" Yep. So, for low vis ops, I'm not your guy, right? And so, operating in the field as needed, I will. But by and large, no. I'm definitely not on the victim services team because the shit makes me so mad that I can't actually help in that capacity. I'm not on the white collar team because I'm not an attorney. I'm not a trauma therapist. I'm not a doctor. I supervise the construction because I know construction stuff. Sure. But by and large, I'm not the guy or the girl cutting 2x4s and running Romex and PEX or pouring the concrete, even though I know those things. And so I sit on the board and I plug in where I can and where I'm needed, which is predominantly with a chainsaw and on heavy equipment to make the room to build the houses. And so even though I'm involved in all these different things, the scope that I'm involved in maximizes on the capability that I have. It's the best utilization of my time for everybody else. Because go to Caleb House, right? If my ego was like, I'm going to be on all field operations, I've now just blown most field operations because those people who do that are better at it than I am. And I'm bringing an element of risk to this for them because if I get made at the gas station, the op is off. And now because of my ego, we didn't go rescue these kids.
Plus, we're in our 40s, bro.
100%. And that's a great word. Yeah. There's a shelf life.
Nobody wants to admit it. And that's another ego thing. But like there is a time, and I love the old adage, like, those who can do and those who can't teach. It's not that we can't.
Yep.
It's that, you've got good knees and a good back still.
Yep.
And we might need somebody to haul somebody's ass up and drag them out of a thing.
Yep.
And I'm good for that once.
Yep.
But then I'm offline for a while.
Same.
I lift heavy things all the time.
Yep.
I work out all the time. That's not new. I post stuff like that on the internet. And so I work out to maintain a healthy lifestyle, so I'll be around as long as possible.
Yep.
And not more.
Yep.
I'm not trying to be swole or a great big bodybuilder. I want to be there for the people that need me as long as possible. If I were to continue to do things that were hard on my body because I have mental experience, I have the mental, drive to do it. I have some mental desire to do it, some need to do it, and my ego tells me I'm the best person for the job because I know more than all these other people.
Yep.
Oh, listen, all the people you have around you are really inexperienced. You should be the one doing it. Okay. Let me offer an alternate thought. All these people around you are really inexperienced. You should be the one teaching them how to do it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Got common core competencies.
Yep.
For the people I have around me, there's basic common competencies that everybody has. But everybody has expertise in something. And the way you demonstrate your expertise to the people around you is you teach it to them at a basic level.
Yep.
And that way, everybody gets complementary basic core competencies in everything. And then we've got the people we go to if you need to be above that.
Yep.
But for most of life, you don't.
Yep.
And if you or I continue to be like, listen, I want to be the guy at the point of the spear, and like we'll have all these less experienced people supporting me. That doesn't last.
Well, a dull spear doesn't help us either.
Correct.
And if I'm dulling the spear by being there,
The force, the momentum driving the shaft has to be so great if your spear isn't sharp.
Yep.
Like you need way more people behind you for that to still have the same effect.
Yep.
And you can reverse that math and make it work for you.
well, we all know a dull knife is the most dangerous knife.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, people talk about this all the time. Iron sharpens iron.
Yep.
There's something to that, though. The iron that is sharpening the iron has to be at least as hard as the iron it's intersecting with. And if you intersect at the wrong angle,
Yeah, it doesn't sharpen it down the point.
we made it worse.
You got it.
Right? We went from a serviceable edge to now it's dull.
Yep.
Because the angle was wrong or
Yep.
the technique was wrong. And
Yep.
there's so much wisdom in the Bible. You can read the parashot, the literal, what does it say? Iron sharpens iron, Proverbs 27:17, right? And that's great. But the wisdom in there is like, think about the iron. What kind of iron do I need to sharpen this iron? Right? Like I don't know about you, but I got multiple different ways to sharpen tools, right? The sharpening system that I use is going to be dependent upon the tool, the size of the blade, the application of the blade. What kind of edge do I actually need on this blade? Am I skinning a sheep? Or is this a machete? Is a machete bring me a file? Right.
So you're saying there's nuance and context.
There is nuance and context, 100%. The application of having enough dwell time with the edge to know when it needs to be sharpened, sharpening it at the appropriate time with the appropriate piece of equipment at the appropriate angle. So, yeah, if you now think about your brother with that, if I'm having a really bad day, right, or I'm just super busy or something, and Dudley comes to me and is like, hey, man, I need to rebuke you on this thing. And the thing is a I don't like it thing, not a transgression of the law thing. Is that helping anything? Was this the appropriate intervention at the appropriate time with the appropriate technique and the appropriate tools given the condition of the blade? No, it just made it worse, right? And so a lot of times we sharpen knives that don't need to be sharpened, or we sharpen knives our way, even though it's the inappropriate way to sharpen the iron. And I think it requires a better understanding of the sharpening to be able to look at the tool that needs work and also know this sharpening may be beyond my pay grade. I might need somebody who's better at sharpening knives in order for this to get a good edge on it. But then that ego gets in the way again. I sharpen knives this way. This is the tool that I use. All the knives in my drawer must be sharpened precision sharpened this way, and it's like that's the wrong application of the wrong technique to the wrong knife. Difference between a Bowie knife and a fillet knife. It's different technique. Even if it's the same stone, it's a different technique. And so, yeah, you can get wrapped around the axles on that. Where do people find you, Ed?
You can find me on the internet at iridiumsolutions.ca. The .ca is for Canada. I have sister websites, but they're all linked through there. You can find me and some of my cool friends. Shout out to the Blue Line Syndicate group.
Oh, I meant to
know
bring
you've
him
met.
up. Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's responsible for filmography and a lot of the content that we produce. When the pictures look like they were taken by an iPhone and then like edited up real nice, I did that. And when the pictures look like they were taken by a professional videographer's $50,000 camera rig, that was him.
Yeah.
And he's got a cool job, and you know, we don't talk about that so much. He's a legit dude.
Yep.
So shout out to him. If you're not following the Blue Line Syndicate group on Instagram, you should be. I'm also on Instagram at the Iridium Group. I have a YouTube channel that I do not pay very much attention to. You'll be able to find it if you look for it. Email me if you have any questions. If I don't get back to you, it's not because I didn't like your question. There are so many things going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Final thoughts?
Why sharpen a knife to a gleaming edge just for a gleaming edge's sake?
That's a good word. Because it makes me feel good that I sharpened it.
And if you do that with all your knives, what could you have spent your time on?
Yeah. Is the edge serviceable?
Yeah. Are the people around you doing good enough? Is what you have going on good enough? Does it need to be polished to this super shiny, gleaming edge?
Yeah.
Do you need to expend all that extra energy to make it that much prettier? Or is it perfectly serviceable, perfectly functional now? And can you make something else perfectly serviceable and functional? Can you bring it up to that level?
Yeah. Do I need the 8,000 grit stone or will the 1,000 do?
I think when it comes to building companies that teach life-saving skills, that sell life-saving equipment, that one of the things that really you and I stand out differently from the crowd is we're not trying to push flash.
Yep.
It has to be functional.
Yep.
And that's a core principle. And functional doesn't have to be beautiful. It can be. But it doesn't have to be. It's got to be the best thing without a bunch of extra shit on it.
Amen.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being my only trip to America this year.
And I really appreciate that.
Hell yeah.
Y'all have a blessed day. We'll see you down in the comments section. Shalom.
Shalom.